Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Midlife Crisis, a show where I talk about every major crossover event in the DC universe in chronological order. This week, we are going to begin our journey through 52, the massive DC event that consists of 52 issues that was used to fill in the events that happened during the missing year after Infinite Crisis. So, at the end of Infinite Crisis, every single DC comic skipped a year in time. They called it 1 year later. And so, like, every comic skipped ahead by 1 year. And 52 was created as a way to fill in the gap so that readers, like, if there were already readers that were wondering what happened during that missing year, they could read this series and they would find out. This is not the first time that DC has done a weekly comic book, but this is the first time that they've done one that was so big and ambitious. Like, before this, they did a couple of other series that were weekly, like Final Night was weekly, Millennium was weekly, but those were like 4 to 8 issues. This is the first time they ever tried to do something as ambitious as 52 issues, one every single week for an entire year. And in order to pull off this kind of feat, they needed a lot of people working on it. So they had 4 writers working on this series at the same time. Geoff Johns, Grant Morrison, Greg Rucka, and Mark Waid, like the heavy hitters. These were the top writers, like writing talent at DC at the time. And so they all came together. They were all good friends. They all worked well together. And so they were able to come together and create this event, this storyline. And it ended up being, according to a lot of people that have read this, I haven't read it yet, obviously. I'm about to. That it is the greatest storyline that DC has ever told. The most interesting thing about 52 is most other DC events heavily focus on Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. But the thing that 52 is that sets 52 apart from all those other events is that it doesn't focus on Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. At this point in time, those, like, Bruce Wayne, Clark Kent, and Diana Prince are not Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. They have all taken a break, or either by choice, or they were forced to. Like, Superman, Clark Kent is currently not Superman, because during Infinite Crisis, he fought Superboy Prime, and in doing so, they traveled through a red sun at some point, like at one point. And that caused all of them to lose their powers. So Clark has no powers at the moment. So that's why he's given up being Superman. Batman was responsible for Brother Eye, which was this huge satellite that gained information and sentient, like, from everyone, and then gained sentience and created, like, these robot drones that were going around killing people. And so he felt incredible guilt for doing that. And he almost came close to killing someone with a gun. And because of all this, he decided to take a year-long break from being Batman. And Wonder Woman, Diana Prince, was given no real choice but to kill Maxwell Lord after he took control of Superman's mind and caused him to go on a rampage. She broke his neck, and because of that, she gained a lot of ridicule from the public. She was seen as a murderer, and that also reflected onto Themyscira. And so the regular population of Earth hated Themyscira. And so in order to keep Themyscira safe, Wonder Woman decided to leave Themyscira. Diana decided to leave Themyscira. And she also decided to give up the Wonder Woman title because she believed it was the best thing to do. Was that the world shouldn't have Wonder Woman. And if it did have a Wonder Woman, it should be somebody else. And so she gave up being Wonder Woman because she believed it was the best thing to do. So that's all the real setup that you need for this series. So without further ado, let's just get straight into this. I don't know how many videos I'm going to be making, but the goal is to have it be at least, 4 or less, because it really depends on how long I'm going to have to talk about each of these issues, because obviously they're all important to the overall story. It's not like Infinite Crisis, where there was like 80 tie-ins and I was able to kind of skip over a few of them. I can't really skip over any of these. Like, all 52 issues are important. Now, the art for this series is done by a lot of people. So instead of calling every single person out for every single issue, because it's going to be changing up a lot, I'm just going to call out every single artist that has worked on this book right now. So all the artists on this book are Eddie Barrows, Chris Batista, Joe Bennett, Giuseppe Camuncoli, Tom Derenick, Dale Eaglesham, Jamal Eigel, Phil Jimenez, Drew Johnson, Justiniano, Dan Jurgens, Ken Lashley, Mike McCone, Sean Moll, Todd Knock, Patrick O'Leaf, Joe Prado, Derek Robertson, Andy Smith, Marlo Alquiza, Eddie Barrows, Maria Benz, Joe Bennett, Belladano Bravo, Keith Champagne, Drax Hall, Drew Garachi, Dan Green, Jack Jadson, Roy Jose, Andy Lanning, Jay Leistein, Dave Meeks, Nelson, Tom Nguyen, Jimmy Palmiotti, Rodney Ramos, Norm Rapmond, Derek Robertson, Prentice Rollins, Lorenzo Ruggiero, Rob Stoll, Ray Snyder, Art Thibbett, and Walden Wong. So, a lot of names. Alright, issue 1 begins immediately after Infinite Crisis, where we see a load of different characters who are dealing with the aftermath. This includes Ralph Dibny, whose house was completely torn apart during the onslaught of the Society of Supervillains. Renee Montoya is drinking her sorrows away after everything that happened to her in Infinite Crisis. She lost her job because she had murdered or attempted to murder Jim Corrigan after he had gone insane. Steele is in Paris, just helping people that are caught in debris and stuff like that. And then we cut to Metropolis. I think it's supposed to be Metropolis, where Booster Gold is taking advantage of, like, the opportunity to become more famous. So he's currently taking down the villain Mammoth, who is a Titans villain. And so yeah, he beats Mammoth, and then there's like a couple of kids that come up to him, and one of them's like, hey, my brother said Wonder Woman was dead. He said she was gone and she's never coming back. And Booster's like, hey, I'm from the future, like, and I'm here to tell you that Wonder Woman is there too, so she's definitely coming back. And then he starts playing up for the camera, and he's smiling a little bit too much because his little portable, there's like this little robot guy that is like Booster Gold's best friend, called Skeets, and he tells Booster, he's like, you're smiling a little bit too much, sir, like, massive catastrophe just happened, people are still reeling from it, maybe you should tone down the smile. And so Booster starts like putting on like a sad face and crying. One of them's like, Booster, look this way, Booster, what's your reaction to the death of the Boy of Steel? He's referring to Superboy, who died at the end of Infinite Crisis. He's like, I'm sorry, must be something in my eye. He's like, Skeets is just like, that's poetry. And so Booster is super excited because apparently, so all of the superheroes are going to be gathering at Sue Dibny's memorial service. And according to Booster, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman are going to be there to announce the new Justice League. And he's going to be announced to be a member. So he's super excited for that. Meanwhile, Ralph Dibny almost shoots himself. He's at home, just super depressed. He grabs a gun, puts it in his mouth. But the thing that stops him is that somebody comes in through to him to talk to him. It's Bee. She is Fire, member of the Justice League, and tells him that there's something written on Sue Dibny's tombstone. Meanwhile, Steele, John Henry Irons, and his daughter, Natasha Irons, she's recently gotten her own, because Steele has like a suit of armor that he wears that he made for himself with like the Superman S on it, and he goes around with a giant hammer defeating supervillains and stuff. But he's also like big about protecting the working class and stuff, because he is a member of the working class. So he's very big about protecting civilians, and especially when it comes to this situation where there's debris everywhere, helping as much as he can. But his daughter, Natasha, who has her own suit of armor now and is a member of the Titans, is more preoccupied with going and helping the Titans than helping the people that are like helping clean up the debris and stuff. And John decides to punish her by turning off her suit, because he's like, I'm not like, we got more important things to do than you hanging out with your Titans friends. You have a duty to help people that are still reeling from the crisis. So if you want your own suit, you're gonna have to build it yourself, because, like, I'm not letting you use my suit just to go hang out with your friends. Meanwhile, and then he just leaves her. Meanwhile, Black Adam has decided that he is going to try and teach the world the lesson that they need to learn, because after everything that happened in the crisis, he's basically just like, they can't look after themselves, so we are going to have to teach them. And the Wonder Woman, like the Themyscirian embassy, was shut down after Diana stepped down as Wonder Woman and left, and so now it has become an embassy of Kahndaq. There's a terrorist that shows up in Kahndaq who tries to, like a suicide bomber, who tries to blow up a bunch of people because he doesn't want to listen to what Black Adam has to say, because he believes that Black Adam is not the leader that they need. So Black Adam just grabs him, flies him into the sky, releases the bomb so that it just explodes in the sky, and then he rips the guy's arm off, like clean, grabs him by the throat, and is like, you have 3 more chances to tell me who sent you. Meanwhile, Dr. Savannah is watching the TV, and he's like, I don't want Black Adam looking after us. Like, that guy freaks me out. Like, where's Captain Marvel when you need him? But then a group of mysterious beings break into his room. We're not exactly sure who they are, but they take Savannah hostage. Because they need him for something. So all of the superheroes gather together at the memorial service. Bart Allen has been aged up and is going to become the new Flash eventually. He hasn't yet. He's letting Jay be the Flash. But he will become the Flash, and if you want to hear how that goes, I did cover Bart Allen's Flash series in a previous video, so you can go watch that to find out what happens when Bart Allen becomes the Flash. But yeah, all the superheroes have gathered together at the memorial service. There's a couple of statues now for Superman and Superboy, and Booster Gold is there because he's waiting for Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman to show up. And the other heroes also think that they're going to show up as well. They're basically just like, where are they? Booster's like, they'll be here soon. They're going to come. Count on it. They're supposed to be here. And Booster's like, 3, 2, 1, ta-da! And then he looks at like the podium where they're supposed to be, but they're not there. And so Booster starts freaking out. He's just like, what happened to them? Like, where are they? They're supposed to be here. Like, this isn't supposed to happen. Like, I'm supposed to become a member of the Justice League. And he starts freaking out, and everyone starts trying to calm him down. Somebody grabs him and is like, Booster, they're not coming. And he's like, what do you mean they're not coming? And he punches this person that grabbed him in the face, and it turns out that the person that grabbed him was Clark Kent. He's like, how the hell do you know? And Clark's like, I just know, and I'm sorry. Meanwhile, we see the bat signal, and somebody peels the bat off of it, and then starts spray painting a question mark on it. It turns out that it's the Question, another character. His name is Charles Victor Saz. He's a detective, one of the earliest detectives alongside Batman. He wears like a mask that makes it look like he has no face. A lot of people mistakenly think that he has no face. It's just a mask that he wears. So yeah, he turns on the question signal, and meanwhile Renee Montoya is in her apartment, still drinking away her sorrows after everything that's happened. She recently broke up with her girlfriend, and so she's depressed over that, when suddenly the light from the question signal starts blaring through her apartment. She's like, what the hell? She looks out and she's like, oh, for God's sake, and she sees the question mark. She's like, it points up, you idiots. Damn morons. And so she thinks that somebody is mistakenly shining the signal at her, but what she doesn't realize is that the Question is doing this on purpose. He's like, are you ready? And that's where it leaves off. It leaves off on apparently the Question has got some plans for Renee Montoya. And I guess we'll see what those plans are in the coming issues. Alright, issue 2 begins with Ralph Dibny visiting the grave of Sue Dibny, where he meets this young guy who he had apparently saved alongside Sue. Like, he'd saved this guy's brother. So while Elongated Man was saving his brother, Sue was keeping him nice and calm, and so he looks up to both of them as heroes. Like, he sees Elongated Man as much a hero as Batman. So Ralph found some kind of symbol on the grave that he took a photo of, but we don't get to see what it is. But he knows that it means something, that there's a mystery for him to solve. So he goes off to deal with that. We'll check on him later. Meanwhile, we gotta check in on Booster Gold, who has taken Skeets to Dr. Will Magnus, who was responsible for creating the Metal Men, because he believes that this guy is the only guy that would be able to fix what's wrong with Skeets, because Skeets has been getting things wrong when it comes to... Like, because Skeets is supposed to know what happens in the future, and he said that Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman were going to be at the memorial, but it turned out they weren't. So Booster thinks there's something wrong with Skeets, and that's why he's not reading the future properly. But Will says there's nothing wrong with him. He apparently fixed his Skeets and gives him back to Booster, and he's like, I gotta go, because I got somebody that I need to talk to, because it turns out I'm not the smartest man on the planet when it comes to robots. There's somebody else who's smarter than me, and he's currently being kept in a mental institution. The man that Will Magnus is referring to is Dr. T.O. Morrow, who is currently being held in a institution. I don't know what the name of it is. He refers to it as Haven, so I guess like that's the name of the place. So Will is actually good friends with T.O. Morrow. T.O. Morrow is a very complicated character because he's not necessarily evil, really. Like, sometimes he is, but it's more so the fact that, like, he keeps creating intelligent, like, autonomous beings that gain their own intelligence and happen to become evil. And so T.O. Morrow gets blamed for that, and that's kind of made him go insane, because he keeps getting blamed for the things that he creates. Meanwhile, Will Magnus creates robots as well, and he never gets locked up in a mental asylum for it. But one of the notable things that T.O. Morrow created was Red Tornado, who did become a superhero. So Will tells T.O. Morrow that Red Tornado sacrificed himself during the crisis to help the world. And that he says he wants to keep coming to see T.O. Morrow from, like, going forward because he enjoys talking to him. And T.O. Morrow explains to Will that there have been scientists like him, mad scientists, who have been kidnapped lately. The most recently being Dr. Savannah, which we saw in the previous issue. And so he's like, you know, if I were you, I'd watch your step and keep taking my antidepressants. So, yeah, Will seems to be at risk of possibly being kidnapped, same with T.O. Morrow. Meanwhile, the Question enters Renee Montoya's apartment, where Renee is currently sleeping with another woman. It's really weird. He walks in there holding, like, a pair of panties, and he kind of just holds it up in her face, and she wakes up. He's like, who are you? She just grabs her gun and shoots straight at the Question, and her partner is like, ah! Like, oh my god, he doesn't have a face, oh my... Shut up. Where'd he go? You shot him, right? You hit him. Do you see him? Did you get him? What do we do? Do we call the cops? Renee? What is it, Renee? And she looks at the pair of panties that the Question was holding on to, and picks up a note that says 520 Kane Street with a question mark on it. Meanwhile, Booster Gold goes to stop a plane from crashing. Skeets tells him that it's coming from the north, but it turns out it's actually coming from the south. So Booster almost doesn't stop it from crashing into Earth, but he does. He manages to catch the plane and stop it from hurting anyone. But he gets really mad at Skeets. He's like, yeah, there's definitely something wrong with you, because this is the second time that you've gotten the future wrong. So either you're glitched, or somebody is messing with the future. Renee decides to head to 520 Kane Street, and when she gets there, the Question appears behind her and is like, kind of a dump, isn't it? And she goes straight to try and shoot him again, but he grabs her arm and just throws her. He's like, do you shoot everyone you meet, or is this a personal thing? Who the hell are you? I asked you first. And he takes the bullets out of her gun, chucks it back to her. Like, I shot you. I know I shot you. Are you sure? Pretty sure. So you are a detective after all. No, I'm not. I got a new job. It's called being a drunk. Do I judge you by what you say or by what you do, Renee? How do you know my name? I'm hiring you. $200 a day plus expenses. First 3 weeks paid in advance. Don't judge the building by how it looks. Judge it by how it's used and by who uses it. What? Wait, damn it. And she grabs her gun and she's like, wait. And he just disappears. She's like, I still have questions. So yeah, I don't know what's going on with that, but we'll continue to unravel this mystery as it goes on. Apparently there is like, I wouldn't call them a cult, but there are a group of kids that are like literally worshipping Superboy after his sacrifice. They're all praying to him. It's like, and even as Krypton's red sun dims in the evening skies, know and remember that it is by the strength of our faith and our love that your path stays as bright as the eyes of Lady Candor herself. So say we all. So say we all. So say we all. And they all just say that, and it's like, transmission ended. So yeah, it's kind of this weird little thing that they're doing where they're kind of worshipping Superboy. It feels very cult-like. So Wonder Girl, Cassie Sandsmark, is in Titan's Tower, just chilling. Also, we don't know who the person praying to Superboy was, but it's somebody with blonde hair. So I guess we'll find out who it is. It could be Kara. So Cassie Sandsmark is at Titan's Tower, just thinking about Connor, because, you know, they were dating, and so she's really sad that he's dead. And Ralph Dibny shows up behind her, and he's like, I hear he loved you too, Cassie, Wonder Girl, if you're still calling yourself that. Ralph Dibny, we've met. A few days ago, someone defaced my wife's gravestone with what I have reason to think was a message from you. A message? Why would you? Because you did your homework. The altar, the crystals, very authentic. See, I did my research too. The S, Cassie. Not many people know that it had literal meaning. It's a symbol. On Krypton, it translated as the word hope. Inverted, though, it stands for something else altogether. Resurrection. And he holds a photo in front of Cassie that has the Superman symbol, like the symbol of hope, flipped upside down, spray painted on her grave. And so that's what was on the grave. So what's this all about? We're going to have to find out. So issue 3 begins with Maggie Sawyer being invited to Gotham City to check a body which looks exactly like Lex Luthor. Now, if you've read Infinite Crisis, you would know that this body isn't Lex Luthor, it's Alexander Luthor from Earth 3, the other reality. The guy that was the main antagonist of Infinite Crisis. Lex Luthor and the Joker killed him at the end of Infinite Crisis, and so Lex Luthor has disguised him as him, I guess, by shaving all his hair off and stuff like that. Meanwhile, Power Girl is fighting a villain known as Terror Man. He's an enemy of Superman. Usually he's all about, like, trying to protect the ecosystem in very over-the-top and villainous ways. And he uses technology. So he's like a cowboy, but he uses, like, technology. So he has, like, a robotic horse that he rides on, stuff like that. So he's fighting Power Girl, and their fight is stopped by Black Adam because they are currently fighting over, like, African territory. And he's like, this is my jurisdiction, so you gotta get the hell out of here. And if you don't pass this message on to your friends and come back here, like, if you ever come here again, like, you will not like what I have to say about it. Like, I will do something and you won't like it. Like, basically he's threatening Power Girl, like, if you come back into my area, like, I will kill you. So I was wrong about Natasha Irons previously. I said she was John's daughter. She's actually his niece. So she wants to go into science and become, like, an acclaimed scientist and stuff. So she wants to apply for registration at the Future Tech Colloquium that's coming in the following week. And John is like, no, you gotta go to school. And so they get into a big argument about whether or not she should continue her studies and be in school and stuff like that. She's like, I don't want to be spending my time reading boring books I'd rather just like be a scientist, which is what I want to be. And John's like, you can be a scientist once you can prove that you can commit to things like school. And so John then gets a call from Maggie Sawyer to come and investigate the body that they found of Lex Luthor. Meanwhile, Black Adam returns to Kahndaq, where a couple of representatives of Intergang come to visit him with a woman as hostage and a bunch of African gold as reward, to be like, hey, you know, join up with Intergang. We'll give you all sorts of weapons to protect Kahndaq, and also this woman. And Black Adam just grabs one of the guy's heads and crushes it. It's like, I say no. And I guess the other guy isn't dead yet. He doesn't die. But Terror Man sees this happen, and he's like, hey, Adam, I like your style. And they team up off screen. Like, off panel, he asks Black Adam to join up with him. Meanwhile, there's a hot dog stand in the middle of Metropolis, and Skeets goes up to the guy that runs the hot dog stand and is like, hey, you better move out of the way, because something bad's literally about to happen in 5 seconds. So the guy moves just as a villain called Shockwave is sent flying into his hot dog stand, because Booster Gold is fighting Shockwave. Booster has also put bets on a baseball game that Skeets says is guaranteed to win, so he's bet a lot of money on it. I'm guessing that it's probably going to be it's going to be wrong, because Skeets has been wrong about the future lately. But yeah, Booster beats up Shockwave and defeats him, and then he goes and gets an endorsement from Actaeon Holt, America's leader in pharmaceuticals, because Skeets recommended it. And then the FBI come in and they arrest Actaeon Holt, because apparently they have like securities fraud. So Booster Gold gets really mad at Skeets. She's like, you, sir, that wasn't supposed to happen. Perhaps I am malfunctioning. Shall I attempt to contact Dr. Magnus for repairs? No, I want you to find someone else for me. Get me everything you can on the current whereabouts of a man named Hunter. Rip Hunter. Rip Hunter is a time traveler, so Booster's gonna go see him and see if somebody's messing with the timeline or something. John Henry Irons looks over the Lex Luthor body and comes to the conclusion that this isn't the Lex Luthor that they know. It is the alternate reality version of Lex Luthor that tried to destroy everything. And then Lex Luthor himself enters the building. He's basically like, you've all been, trying to accuse me of all these awful things, so I've come here to set the record straight. I am Lex Luthor, and the body of this man right here is also Lex Luthor, but he is not me, and I am not him. He is, in fact, an alternate reality version of myself who came here to ruin and tarnish my name, and he succeeded. Meanwhile, I was locked away somewhere, and I managed to escape and regain my identity. But don't take my word for it. You see, standing beside me, Dr. John Henry Irons, known to the world as Steel, one of the many heroes who stood in the recent crisis, whose actions helped to save us all. He was there. He can verify what I'm telling you. Even if you don't trust me, you can trust him. And Lex, puts his hand around John, and John's just kind of like, what is this guy up to? Meanwhile, Black Adam comes to Metropolis, I guess? I guess it's Metropolis, or it's a city in the DC universe. It's wherever the Kahndaq embassy is. He comes to talk to everyone, and he's basically just like, I've come here to send a message to anyone who feels like taking advantage of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, or any of the other heroes not being around right now. And Terror Man is there, just kind of giving him the thumbs up because he thinks that Black Adam is working with him. The first message is simple. People like this man don't deserve to live. And he grabs Terror Man and goes to punch him. He's like, what? Wait, Adam, I thought... And he just rips Terror Man in half in front of everyone. Everyone's just like, oh my god! And all this blood and guts just start raining over everyone. It's time for heroes who don't just patrol the world. They change it. And as Black Adam flies away, we see in a test tube a cocoon, because there's a character called Mr. Mind who is a caterpillar. I've talked about him in a previous event, who can take over people's minds when he goes in their ear and stuff. He's currently cocooned himself up in a test tube, so he's going to become like a butterfly or something. And Black Adam is determined to create, I guess, a killing villains regime where they just go around killing all the villains that deserve it, which to him is pretty much anyone. So we're gonna have to see how that goes. I'm guessing not well. Alright, so issue 4 begins with Renee Montoya staking out a building that the Question asked her to stake out for the next 2 weeks. And while she's doing that, meanwhile, there are a group of superheroes who are in space trying to look for the missing superheroes that went into space during the crisis. So, Alan Scott, Animal Man, Hawk Girl, like a bunch of different characters are all currently in space somewhere, possibly alive or dead. Adam Strange is one of them too. A character called Halo senses that there's sees readings of Zeta Beam residual energy from Zeta Beams near them, which is what Adam Strange uses to travel around. So they might be able to use the residual energy to create a Zeta Beam that brings the heroes back to Earth, possibly. That's the idea. Meanwhile, Booster Gold is out making a name for himself, creating deals and things like that. And Buyer, Beatrice DaCosta, is like, are you sure what you're doing is right? Are you sure you're doing the right thing? Are you sure you were doing what Ted would have wanted? Because Ted died, and you're out here just making deals for sponsorships and things like that. It's I did my part, B. I risked my life. Jumping back here from the 25th century to finish what Ted started, I helped save the world. I helped save a future that spit in my face. So now you know what? It is about me. And Fire just storms out of the room, literally just burns straight through the door, doesn't even open it, she just walks straight through the door, burning through it. Sir, Big Belly Burger is waiting, because he's going to get a sponsorship at Big Belly Burger. Renee Montoya continues smoking in her car, staking out the building, when the Question appears behind her, and she's like, geez, I hate you. Nice doodles. Bite me. Can't, no mouth. You didn't answer me. How many packs a day of cigarettes do you have? It's like, what are you, my mother? There's cyanide gas in cigarette smoke. That's the same stuff they use in gas chambers. She just blows the smoke in his face. That's very mature. I thought so. Keep up the good work. Hey, wait a minute. You saw my notes. There's nothing going on here. Not yet. There will be, I'm sure of it. We'll talk again later. Don't hold your breath. 4 more days, buddy. That's it. 4 more days. Then I'm done. So she just continues staking out the building. John Henry Irons is planning on giving up being Steel. He says that he never should have done it in the beginning. He's like, I never should have become Steel. It was a mistake. And he starts hallucinating his suit of armor talking to him. And he starts vomiting in the toilet and stuff and feeling really weird. He's just like, somebody did something to me. Poisoned. And his armor is talking to him, and it's like, he got that right. But who? And why? I hope you're ready for a long night in hell, John Henry. And John just grabs onto a computer, and his hand starts melding with it, and it starts the metal starts forming with his skin. He's like, what's happened to me? Ah! And he explodes in a huge blast of energy. So something has happened to John. He's turning into metal or something. Ralph Dibny discovers that Cassie Sandsmark, aka Wonder Girl, is a member of a cult that is worshipping Superboy, or the idea that he could be resurrected. Apparently, they are using the waters of the river Memon to see visions of the people that they love, and they want Ralph to go into the water because they say that he will see Sue, so he decides to do so. And they're like, but before you go in, you gotta give us whatever it is that means most to you. And Ralph Dibny's like, well, the thing that meant most to me was Sue, so I don't have anything, so just get this over with. And so he goes into the water, they hold him down, and he starts freaking out. He's just like, ah, and he gets back up, and he's like, what hell kind of scam? I didn't see anything. Cassie? And he looks at his hand and his ring's gone. And then he looks around and they're all gone. So it seems like Rav Divney has been scammed. Like, poor dude. What is Cassie doing? So Renee Montoya sees a very mysterious-looking big dude enter the building that she's watching. So she heads in after him, where she bumps into Question. And she's like, oh, there must be like a secret passage or something around here. And she also thinks it's weird that the Question doesn't know what's going on. She's like, you're the one that hired me to do this, and yet you don't know what's going on? She finds a secret passage. They enter it, which she clicks a button to turn on a light. And it turns out that it's a secret passage because it opens the floor underneath them and they fall through into what looks like an underground warehouse where they see who this big guy is. It turns out it's this weird green monster thing. So it starts attacking them by throwing boxes at them. The boxes break open and there's weird weapons inside them. And so Renee grabs one of the weapons while the Question fights this monster. He overpowers the Question, but Renee grabs one of the nearby alien weapons and zaps the monster, killing him. She's like, damn. So the heroes that were on the space station that found the residual Zeta Beam energy, they use it to create a Zeta Beam. They teleport a bunch of the heroes back to Earth, but they realize that something's wrong because they teleport them back and Hawkgirl is giant for some reason. Alan Scott is pretty messed up. Like, they're all pretty messed up. Alan Scott's pretty messed up. Two of the characters have been fused together. It seems like the Zeta Beam technology has really messed them up because they didn't do it properly. So, like, yeah, they're all kind of messed up. So issue 5 begins with Alan Scott visiting Buddy Baker, Animal Man's wife and daughter, to tell them that while a lot of them have come back from space, Animal Man is still missing alongside Adam Strange and Starfire. So Alan has lost an eye. All of the heroes, all of the heroes have been affected by the Zeta Beam somehow, by being, like, fused together and stuff. Alan Scott lost an eye, and the eye that he does have isn't his own. Hawkgirl is ginormous because her DNA was fused with Bumblebee, so it caused her to grow massive. Another character called Mal Duncan was fused with pieces of Red Tornado, so his heart has become like Red Tornado's heart, so right now he's in critical condition. Cyborg and Firestorm have been fused together into a frozen state, so now they're trying to figure out how to separate the two of them. So that's all currently going on at one of the local hospitals. Meanwhile, Lex Luthor has apparently synthesized a human variant metagene that will give anyone superpowers if they take it. And it's believed that when he put his elbow on, when he put his arm around John, he slipped John the metagene, and that's why John has been, had that weird surge of, that weird transformation in the last issue where he was melding with technology. It's assumed that he now has superpowers, and that Lex Luthor gave them to him. So he puts on his steel suit, and he goes to talk to Alan Scott and Dr. Midnight at the hospital, where Midnight explains everything that's happened to the heroes that are affected by the Zeta Beam, including Mal Duncan. And Alan Scott explains to John what happened to them. They were in space, a big portal opened up, and at the same time that the portal opened up, which sent a surge of energy throughout space, the Zeta Beam teleportation, the Zeta Beam teleporter appeared as well, and that mixed with the portal, and it caused, the portal caused the Zeta Beam, when it was teleporting everyone, to malfunction, and that's why they all got, mixed together and separated and stuff like that. So a bunch of them were sent to Earth all messed up, and then Starfire, Adam Strange, and Animal Man were either sent somewhere else or completely obliterated. They don't know what's happened to them. They've gone missing. Mal Duncan starts freaking out, and they're just like, oh my god, we need to get him help or something. This man is in cardiac arrest. So they start trying to help Mal. Meanwhile, Renee Montoya is visited by one of her ex-co-workers, Lenny, who works for the Gotham City Police Department. And Lenny basically says to Renee, like, you're working for this guy as a private investigator, but you're not a private investigator, so you're not getting any of the benefits. And that will cause you to get into a lot of trouble. So Renee's like, well, I guess I'm going to have to consider the idea of possibly becoming a private investigator. So Lenny leaves. She's like, take care of yourself, Renee. Renee's like, don't worry about that. She holds, like, the alien gun that she found in the warehouse. Seems like she decided to keep it to use to her own, for her own needs. So, Hawkgirl is freaking out as well because of her transformation, and so is Mal Duncan, and John saves everyone by shoving his hand into the power box and using his new powers to control the technology, which then saves everyone. And Mal Duncan just quickly sits up in his bed. He's like, ugh. And from his chest, Red Tornado starts talking, like the remnants of Red Tornado. And it's like, it's coming. And a massive boom happens, which causes all the glass in the hospital, like all the glass windows in the hospital to just shatter. And Mal Duncan starts saying, 52, 52. He's just like, 52, 52. And then he passes out. Like, what was that? Some kind of playback? The Red Tornado's last words. What was he talking about? What's coming? Meanwhile, on some other planet, in the middle of wherever, Starfire, it's revealed that Starfire, Animal Man, and Adam Strange were sent to this planet, and now Adam Strange is trying to work on a way to get them home, because he blames himself for them ending up here, because he was the one that created the Zeta technology, and that's what caused all the problems. It's also revealed that Adam Strange has no eyes. He's like, I got us into this. I promised I'd get us out of it, didn't I? None of that's changed, princess. Eyes or no eyes. It's a pretty horrifying moment where he turns around and his eyes are revealed to be missing. Buddy is also freaking out because he's never been on an alien planet before, and he just wants to get home to his family. He's like, the sun isn't even set in 2 weeks. I'm not used to that. And then Animal Man says that, like, he's been using his powers ever since they got to the planet, and he's been sensing something nearby them, because he has the abilities to sense animals and talk to them and stuff, or any kind of creature. And he says that there is something there with them. So we'll find out what happens to them in the next issue. There's quite a few stories that we're really building up right now, and throughout this event we'll see them all play out. Alright, so issue 6 begins with Booster Gold having saved the city from a villain known as Manthrax the Marauder. He's very clearly supposed to be like an Iron Man pastiche. He's not a real villain though. Booster Gold, like, he's just an actor. Booster Gold hired him to make himself look good, to make himself look like a hero. And so he gives this actor the money that he owes, and then tells him to never be seen again. Like, Manthrax is dead as far as he knows, and that they're never going to talk, and no one's ever going to hear about this conversation that they're currently having. So Booster's doing a little bit of seedy work when it comes to being a hero. So he then decides to head off and find Rip Hunter, which he's been doing at the moment. And he finds out that Rip Hunter is currently located in Arizona, so he heads straight there in the middle of the desert. Meanwhile, Hal Jordan and John Stewart, the Green Lanterns, are in China chasing after Red Star, who is a Green Lantern villain, who's flying a ship through China. So they go there in order to stop him, but they run into a group known as the Great 10, who are a group of superhumans who protect China. We meet a bunch of the villains that are in China, like the leaders of the 10. I don't exactly know who their names are yet. Their main leader is referred to as the Great One. And so a bunch of the lower rank leaders report to him, or report to them, the Great One. And then there's this woman who is known as the Ghost Fox woman, or just some... What was that? The Mother of Champions is her name, and she's pregnant, and apparently she has the ability to give birth to Superman, so it's assumed that the Great Ten were all birthed from her, I'm pretty sure. And so yeah, Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart are in a fight against these superhumans, and they're just like, what are you doing? Like, we're just here to take Red Star. And it's like, because you've broken into our country, and we don't want you in our territory, so get out of here and we'll deal with Red Star. It's like, but he's got all sorts of, like, black market alien technology. Like, we're doing this for the sake of planet Earth in general. Meanwhile, Will Magnus and T.O. Morrell continue their conversation about the mad scientists that have been disappearing. Unfortunately, all of T.O. Morrell's books and everything he owns has been stolen, like, has been taken from him, because he turned some guy's iPod, like one of the guard's iPods, into a sonic disintegrator ray. It's like, I'm one of the leading men in technology. Why don't they respect me as much as you? And Will Magnus is like, well, maybe if you didn't kill people and they disagreed with you, people might like you more. So maybe you should try doing that. Try a little bit of meditation. So Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan continue fighting the Ten, and they realize that it's going to be really hard for them to bring in Red Star's ship whole while they're fighting these superhumans, so they decide to just blow it up. And as soon as Red Star falls out of the ship, Jon Stewart catches him, but then Black Adam just comes out of nowhere, punching Hal in the back of the head. And Hal's just like, Black Adam, we don't have time to deal with you. What the hell are you doing here? And Black Adam's like, well, you know that I have this new regime where I've been teaming up with different countries in order to protect Kahndaq. China is one of the countries that I've teamed up with, and because you're entering their airspace with the airspace of an ally of mine, it means that you're enemies of mine. So you better get out of here. But the battle actually carries Hal and John across the border from China to Russia. And in Russia's airspace, they're safe, because the Rocket Reds come in and they're like, you cannot attack Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. They are allowed in our airspace, and if you enter our airspace, then you will be considered terrorists, and we will attack you. And Black Adam's like, that's not exactly what we want, is it? And so he's kind of referring to John and Hal invading their airspace, where Black Adam's just like, well, you don't want us entering your airspace, so listen to us and stay away from our space as well. So Booster Gold and Skeets make it to Rip Hunter's underground bunker. Skeets has to stay behind in order to keep the door open, because it has these codes that he needs to continuously put in just to keep it open. So when Booster Gold goes down by himself to the bunker, he finds all sorts of stuff, including Rip Hunter's time sphere, which is what he uses to travel through time normally. He finds a couple of boards that say time is broken on them. He's like, what the hell? And then he looks around and he sees on the walls, it's all his fault. And he's like, it's all his fault? Whose fault? And he sees a picture of himself with arrows pointed at him saying it's all his fault. And Booster's just like, me? So it turns out that Booster Gold is the reason why things are currently going wrong. Like, all these weird changes in time, and why Skeets is not guessing time correctly like he should be. It's all his fault. So issue 7 begins with Animal Man, Adam Strange, and Starfire all stuck on their planet still, and being stuck on this planet is causing them to get quite argumentative with each other, especially because Adam Strange is like, we gotta get off this planet as quick as possible, because there's apparently something living here with us, according to Animal Man. And Starfire's like, well, there's not really anything we can do. I guess we might as well just chill here. Like, we'll be fine. Eventually we'll fix the ship. And Adam's just like, all you've been doing is just sitting around eating that fruit. You don't even know what the fruit is, because Starfire's been, like, munching on this fruit. And she's like, oh, you haven't even tried it. Like, so you can't say if it's good or bad. So, like, clearly the planet is messing with them and causing them to start arguing, because it kind of comes out of nowhere, you know? This isolation of the three of them. on a planet that they don't know about. So yeah, it's not looking good. It looks like the relationships between the three of them are starting to fall apart. Meanwhile, Renee Montoya is going over everything that's happened to her when she went to that warehouse in the Harbor District, and she's like, what does this all mean? Like, what's the clue to this with the question and the warehouse? But then she realizes that the warehouse was on Kane Street in the Harbor District. 523 520, the warehouse. It's owned by the Kane family, and Renee Montoya personally knows their daughter, Kate Kane. So she decides to go to the Kane residence to get some answers, because she believes that because they own the warehouse, maybe they had something to do with the alien technology that was there, or they at least know something about it. So we cut to Booster at his house as he's arguing with somebody because he owes them money, when Ralph Dibny shows up asking for help with the Cult of Connor, because he's currently looking for this cult that Stephanie has joined not Stephanie. Cassie Sandsmark, sorry. I'm getting my blonde characters mixed up. I was thinking of Stephanie Brown there for a sec. So yeah, Ralph comes to Booster to ask for help with the Cult of Connor, but Booster's more preoccupied with what he's currently doing. There's a great moment that happens between them where Skeets is just like, oh, there's 3 minutes, sir, and Ralph's like, 3 minutes? To what, Skeets? It's like, tell him, he can keep a secret. Where are my goggles? It's right around your neck, sir. According to the historical records in the databanks, Mr. Dibny, tonight's headlines tell of a massive outbreak of mob violence outside the LexCorp building, and so Booster Gold will get there in time in order to stop it. You know, it's like, you've been here for so long, I completely forgot that you were from the future, Booster. It's like, that's how Booster's always there to prevent the big crimes and disasters in Metropolis. He knows about them in advance. This whole era is history to you. Data. So if that's the case, and Ralph Dibny just walks up to Booster and slams him against the wall. He's like, why the hell didn't you warn me my wife was going to die? He's like, Ralph, I was as surprised as you, I swear. I didn't learn every little detail. Little detail? That came out... I mean, Ralph, ask Skeets, I'm like the worst history student ever. And plus, they don't teach this stuff in school. I never knew about... And Skeets just answers, Sue Debun Dibny. Murdered 8 months ago by Jean Loring, a pivotal event in the 21st century superhero community. 2 minutes, sir. It's like, Ralph, I wasn't keeping that from you. It's just, why would I even think to ask? No, it's my fault. For thinking you would think. Wait a second. For assuming, in lieu of any evidence whatsoever, that Booster Gold was ever capable of caring about anyone other than himself. Ralph, look how far you've sunk, Gold. All this product endorsement, all these self-aggrandizing stunts. Who are you really helping besides yourself? With Superman gone, Metropolis needs a hero, not a celebrity pitchman. I do the job, which is more than I can say for a Justice League who hasn't suited up in 8 months. Don't think because I pity you I'm going to take any crap off you. You're looking at Superman's replacement right here, Ralph. And Ralph just hears the explosion in the background from LexCorp, and he's like, prove it. So we cut to the Kane residence, where Renee Montoya asks the butler, or like the bouncer, to let her in, just to go and tell Kate Kane that Officer Renee is here. And that gets her into the building. And so she meets with Kate, and it's revealed that Renee and Kate have a history together. Kate's still in the closet, but she is gay. And her and Renee were in a relationship, but it didn't work out for obvious reasons, because she's a cop. And it was complicated. And so their relationship ended. And the moment Kate sees Renee, she just punches her in the face. You got a lot of nerve coming here, especially after the last time I saw you. So Renee has come in order to ask Kate for help when it comes to the warehouse. She explains everything to her, how she found the warehouse in the Harbor District, and she knows that the Kanes own all the warehouses. And Kate's just like, I don't know, possibly, like, probably, we do own this warehouse still. Could you find out? Does this have anything to do with that cast you're sporting? I need to know, Kate. Call it curiosity. Why should I help you? Because once we thought we were in love with each other. And maybe we even were. And, like, Renee's just thinking to herself, like, that was the wrong thing to say. And Kate's like, I think you'd better go now. She's like, Kate, go, before I change my mind and decide not to help you. You can show yourself out. You know where to find me. Yeah, I always have. And so, yeah, they part their ways, and Kate agrees to help Renee with her investigation. Meanwhile, Booster Gold heads to LexCorp in order to stop the massive chemical explosion that's happening, which he does. He surges straight through the ground, causing a massive water spout that puts out the fire. And then Lois Lane comes and is like, hey, Booster, like, you did it. Like, how did you even know this was going to happen? And Booster's like, because of Skeets, you know, he knows about the future, and I was able to come here and save everyone. And then someone's just like, an amazing stunt, but I have a question. How much did it cost you? And it's the actor that Booster hired earlier to play the fake supervillain. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Interview's over, folks. We'll decide that, thanks. Sir, can I have your name? It's Bill Castell, and I'm an actor. Last week, Booster Gold hired me to stage a fake. Miss Lane, don't listen to a word that man says. He's a proven threat to, go on, Mr. Castell, a fake attack on a commuter rail, and then his check bounced over the bank building in a single bound. I warned him. I said I knew I could go to jail for my part in this, but I'll do it to drag that son of a bitch down. And so Booster's trying to stop this this interview, and Ralph Dibny just shows up and screws him over even more. You know, he comes in and is just like, Ralph Dibny, human race. How many other of these last 6 weeks death-defying rescues have you staged to improve your marketability? And it's like, Mr. Dibny, as an elongated man, you served with Booster Gold in the Justice League. Are you alleging that he's capable of fraud? As far as I'm concerned, absolutely. Ralph, shut the hell up. I swear this isn't what it looks like. Too little too late, Gold. All cameras, all microphones, right here on me. You cannot depend on this man. Whatever Gold does, he doesn't do it for you. He's a vain opportunist who poses as a hero to earn lucrative corporate contracts. Has anyone seen Blue Beetle in the last few months? No. Why? Because this man didn't even care enough to save him from death. Booster Gold is a living, flying con game, and if you're within the sound of my voice, you're just another one of his marks. I can't believe I came to you for help. You call yourself a hero? Ralph, stop. You let Sue down, you let Ted down, and now you've let the whole city of Metropolis down. You're pathetic. And so everyone just leaves Booster to stool in his own depression and self-pity. And we cut to Starfire on the alien planet that she's stuck on as she finds what looks like a giant spear or something, and then there's a huge dude behind it. And so Starfire's just like, Starfire is just like, who is this? Like, and this is obviously the thing that is on the planet with Animal Man and Adam Strange and Starfire, that is possibly a danger to them. Alright, issue 8 begins with John Henry Irons and Natasha just talking to each other. Natasha is still working on her suit of armor. John decides to leave to let her do that. And when he gets into the living room and puts the TV on, he starts feeling a burning in his chest. He rips his chest open and sees that it's turning into molten, steel. And then it just straight up turns into stainless steel. He's just like, oh, that's not good. Seems he's having the ability to turn into steel, but he doesn't have any control over it. Meanwhile, in Star City, Green Arrow takes down a burglar, or a thief. Ralph Dibny shows up, and he explains to Oliver that the reason he's in Star City is because apparently one of the churches of the Cult of Connor is there, and he wants to investigate it. And Oliver talks to Ralph Dibny about how he wants to help bring Star City back up again, but he doesn't know if one man is capable of doing it alone. And this kind of reflects on not only him as a superhero, but at the same time, Oliver Queen is currently the mayor of Star City as well, so it's kind of reflecting on that too, where he's like, can one man do everything by himself? Save Star City as its hero, but also as its mayor. So they go to where the church is supposed to be, but they don't find anyone from the cult in there. Ralph explains to Ollie that the reason why he's looking for this cult is apparently they are talking about resurrecting people, and then he looks at Oliver and is like, resurrection? People can come back from the dead. Like, of course. You came back from the dead. Meanwhile, John heads to his friend Carla, his like co-worker, and she decides to like test his blood just to see what's going on with him. She's like, "Did you get infected by anything when you went out into space?" And John's like, "No, not really." And then he thinks back and he's like, Lex Luthor's been pushing this everyman thing, right? Where like you apply for it and he'll give you superpowers and you could be the next Superman. We met him not that long ago and he put his hand on me. I'm thinking maybe he slipped me the metahuman gene somehow, or he either activated mine or he put it into my body and created these powers for me, because Lex Luthor can tailor the powers to the people, and he's doing this to gain control of me so that I can become his slave, essentially. Because he knows that this isn't what I want, and he's just like a sick bastard. All of a sudden, they hear like a beeping noise as John's blood starts to boil in the test tubes, and it just explodes, and the blood starts landing on his head, turning parts of his head into steel. So it's like his blood just became like molten by itself because he can't control his powers. Meanwhile, we find out that there's a mysterious superhero in Metropolis saving people's lives. He just shows up, or they just show up, and a flash of light happens, and then they disappear. And no one knows who it is. And Booster Gold is being interviewed by somebody about this superhero, and Booster Gold couldn't care less because this guy is hogging all the glory now that Booster has lost his status as a hero. And it turns out the guy that's interviewing Booster is Clark Kent, because he wants to find out who this new hero is, because, you know, he's Superman, or at least he was Superman, so he wants to keep tabs on whoever is occupying Metropolis as its new hero. Natasha gets a phone call from Carla, who she doesn't know that she's talking to Natasha, but she basically admits to Natasha that like John Henry Irons has these powers, and Natasha assumes that he got them from the Everyman application, which is something that she's been wanting to do this whole time, and John has been telling her that she can't until she's ready. So she gets really mad at John. She goes back to working on her armor, and she accidentally knocks it over, trashing it. She's like, like I put all my work into this, and it's broken. And John shows up, and she just gets really mad at him and doesn't even give him a chance to explain. She's just like, no, like, I'm not talking to you. You know, you went to the Everyman thing, even though you said I couldn't. Well, screw you. And she leaves. And John's just like, wait, like, let me explain. Meanwhile, Animal Man and Adam Strange go looking for Starfire, who has gone missing. They find her held in a net above the ground, and then they get caught in a net as well, because they realize that Starfire is a trap. And that big being that Starfire saw in the previous issue comes and grabs them. We still don't know what it is, but we'll find out eventually. Natasha heads to the metahuman, like the Everyman place to apply for it, the Everyman Protocol or whatever it's called. She meets Lex Luthor face to face. Lex knows that John is her uncle, and she just says that she's really mad at her uncle, and she doesn't give a crap about him, and she just wants to take part in the Everyman thing. And Lex is like, yeah, like, sure, I love your spunk, like, you're in, like, you're gonna be our first test subject. And so he brings Natasha in, because he is planning on using all these people as his slaves. Like, he even admits it to Mercy. He's like, yeah, all these people are gonna be my slaves, my superhumans that I control. He takes Natasha in, he hooks her all up. Mercy's like, how much are we gonna give her? And Lex is like, well, she said she wants everything, so that's what we're gonna give her. We're gonna give her the whole deal. And he starts injecting the stuff into her. Meanwhile, John starts breaking his way into the building, I guess, to save Natasha, because he knows, like, what's going on or something. Like, we get a little image of like John. So I'm imagining that that's probably what's gonna happen. It's not happening right now, but John is eventually going to come. He's gonna find out about this, and he's gonna try and get his revenge on Lex for altering his daughter's DNA and turning her into a metahuman. So issue 9 begins with Lex Luthor just at a party talking about the everyman thing and saying that like every man has a chance to be a Superman. When John Henry Irons shows up and is like, Lex Luthor, like, where's my niece? Where's Natasha? And he attacks him and he's like, they shoot at him and he's like, you think this is going to work? Didn't your boss tell you what he was going to do to me? How he was going to change me? Because John is currently using his steel powers, and he is able to not only turn himself into metal, but also manipulate metal as well. So he just pulls a gun out of Mercy's hand and melts it, using his powers. But then Natasha shows up with her superhero team, working for Lex Luthor, because John's like, where is she? And Natasha's like, she's right here, and she wants you to let go of her boss. And so John is just like, what did you do? Like, undo it, change her back. You bastard, I'll kill you! And she's like, no! Natasha just grabs John and throws him. He's like, leave him alone. You picked the wrong group, old man. And Natasha tells one of her, like, fellow superheroes to, like, stand down. She's like, no, Heracles, get back. Let me handle him. And so Natasha and John begin a fight across Metropolis where John is trying to convince her to stop this, and that Lex Luthor has, like, messed with her mind or something, and that this isn't what she should be doing. And meanwhile, Natasha has clearly changed as a person and is like, no, like, this is what I want. I want to work with Lex Luthor. I've always wanted to be a superhero. He gave me exactly what I wanted. Like, look at me. Look how powerful I am. Look at the abilities that he gave me. Like, your powers don't even work against me. You know, this is what I've always wanted, to become the hero you are always talking about, to have the power to do it. If you'd hit Luthor with that, he'd be dead now, Uncle John. You'd have murdered him. So you tell me, which of us is the hero here? And he's like, no! You're confused, Nat. You're not thinking straight. It's you who's lost his mind, not me. And so John just calms down. He's like, you're right. But I'm right too, Natasha. Please. Give it up. Come home. And he reaches his hand out, and Natasha grabs his hand and is like, Uncle John, haven't you heard anything I've said? This is what I want. She just twists his arm, punches him in the gut. It's like, I'll never give it up. Not for you, not for anyone. And then she throws him into the water, and he just falls into the he just throws him into the ocean, and he sinks into the ocean. So yeah, things aren't going good for them in their relationship. Meanwhile, Animal Man, Starfire, and Adam Strange have all been captured by this guy called Deviolence the Pursuer. That is the big dude I've been talking about. He is apparently the god of pursuit. And apparently when Animal Man, Starfire, and Adam Strange ended up at the center of the universe in Infinite Crisis, they saw something that they weren't supposed to see, and so now all of the bounty hunters in the universe, like, the gods have put a bounty on them. So the bounty hunters are all after them, and so are the gods as well. Because, yeah, apparently they saw something that they weren't meant to. And so that's why this god of pursuit booby-trapped this entire planet. The fruits were a part of the trap, so was the nets, like, the trees, everything was a trap in order to get them. So, the God of Pursuit tries to figure out some of Adam Strange's technology. He's like, how does this work? And Adam Strange is like, let me show you. Like, it doesn't work that way. It only works by my command. And he sets the jetpack off in the God of Pursuit's face, because that's what he's holding. He's holding Adam Strange's jetpack. It sets off in his face, burning his face. And Starfire breaks out of the vines that are trapping her. She grabs the God of Pursuit's spear. And, the God of Pursuit gets, like, all these vines wrapped around him. Like, he gets tangled in these vines because he's kind of, like, flailing around. Like, ah! And so all these vines get wrapped around him. And then Starfire just blasts him in the chest. And knocks him out while he's all tangled up. And so they decide that they're going to need to get off the planet and then get to safety somehow, because there's going to be a lot of bounty hunters coming after them. So they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do now. Like, how are they going to get away from being the most wanted beings in the galaxy? And the God of Pursuit turns out he's still awake, so maybe he'll come back later. Because they leave and he just wakes up in the vines and is like, I'm gonna get you, I guess. Like, we don't know yet, but I'm sure he'll come back. So, Renee Montoya heads to a lesbian bar where she meets Vic Sage, who is the Question. I think at this point he's still known as Victor Saz. Eventually they would change his name to Vic Sage to differentiate the two. So yeah, he goes out the back, he goes out back with Renee and asks her about the investigation that they're doing, if she's found out any new clues, and Renee's like, why should I tell you? I don't trust you. And so Vic's like, alright then, and he puts on his mask, showing her that he is the Question, and she's like, why did you do that? Like, why did you show me that? And she's like, so that I could prove to you that I trust you, so maybe you could trust me, and we could work together on this. It's like, why do you know so much about this anyway? Like, I feel like you know more than you're letting on, so tell me something that I don't know. And Vic's like, well, the reason why we're investigating this is because I've been led to believe that Intergang is planning to attack Gotham City. And as he says this, we actually see a woman on top of a building wearing a bat costume with flowing red hair. So it seems like a new bat character has shown up in Gotham City. And we'll find out who this is in the coming issues. So issue 10 begins with Black Adam meeting with all of the countries that have decided to team up with him to explain to them the next step of their plan, which is to kill any metahuman criminals and create a group big enough to rival those criminals, which he sees as the right thing, but there are other people who see it as the wrong thing. Most notably, there is a woman whose name is Adriana Tomaz. She's the woman that Intergang bought to Black Adam, and then he killed both of them. She's been a refuge at his place, but she feels more like she's being held captive, and she hates Black Adam because she sees him as a terrorist, because she sees his plan as being psychotic. You know, the fact that he's going as far as trying to kill criminals. She's like, if you keep doing this, you're going to start a world war. And Black Adam tries to explain to her that he's not a bad guy and that he's not even holding her capture. The reason why he has her is because they tried to take her back to Cairo and they found that her family had been killed by Intergang and her son had been taken, not her son, her brother had been taken away and had become a slave. And so she was, having refuge at Black Adam's place. But he's like, you can just go whenever you want. And she decides that she's going to leave, but before she leaves, she tells Black Adam that he is arrogant, incessant, and alone. And when she says alone, this reflects on Black Adam, and he drops his falsetto for a little bit. Like he drops his serious tone for a moment, because that kind of hits him hard when she says that. Meanwhile, Clark Kent is having trouble because he's been trying to get an interview with Supernova and he's dropped the ball on it. And he's dropped the ball on a lot of stuff lately. A lot of newspaper articles and things. And Perry is considering firing him. He's like, you're on the line right now. Like, I'm going to fire you, Kent, because you are tarnishing our name as a business. Especially because, the Daily Star were the ones that got to name this superhero. The Supernova is what they've started calling him. And Perry exclaims that he's already got Ron Troop on an interview with Supernova, and Clark just takes it as, this is my final opportunity to get an interview with him. He sees that Supernova is currently flying around the Daily Planet building, so he opens the window to the Daily Planet and jumps straight out of it. And Perry's just like, Kent, wait, it's not worth killing yourself, man. Kent! And Supernova grabs Clark. It's like, easy, mister, I got you. Are you okay? It's like, I'm fine. Clark Kent, Daily Planet. Let's talk. So, seems like Clark is pulling out a couple of Lois's techniques of putting yourself in danger in order to get an interview with a superhero, because that's exactly what she did with him. I have a couple of theories on who the supernova might be. There's only one character in particular that it could be at the moment, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm not going to say who I think it is, just in case it spoils who it actually is. But yeah, Clark gets to have his interview with Supernova, and he goes back and he talks to Lois about the interview. He says that while he was having this interview, there were a group of Badnesian terrorists that were trying to steal the Army's new mortar-proof all-terrain tank, and they actually see these terrorists in the city, and he watches as Supernova goes and stops them from stealing the tank. And he just makes the ground beneath the tank disappear somehow by vaporizing it or something. Nobody knows exactly what he did. And he then goes and saves a little kid as well, who's about to fall into the pit that he created. He's like, he's not watching where he's going. Stay back, pal. It's an awfully deep hole in the pavement. And so Clark, says that he believes that Supernova is actually a good person and is possibly on the same level as Superman. The only real question that they need to answer is, who is he? Like, who are they? And Booster Gold also wants to find out who this Supernova is, because this guy has ruined his career, essentially, by taking his role as the hero of Metropolis. Or at least that's how he sees it. He asks Skeets who their identity is, because he's like, we have documents on the future. How do you not know who the Supernova guy is? And Skeets is like, well, the future is constantly changing at the moment, so we don't know who this guy is, because it probably wasn't even meant to be a part of history. Meanwhile, Dr. Will Magnus is continuing his conversations with T.O. Morrow. For some reason, I don't know if this was a miscommunication with the artist, but the artist for this issue drew books and stuff in T.O. Morrow's room, even though a previous issue had included the fact that T.O. Morrow had all of his stuff taken away from him because they didn't trust him having any books or anything, and he was depressed about that. But I guess he's got his books now. They don't really explain that. Maybe he's turning over a new leaf and he was able to convince the guards to give him his books back. I don't know. What's important is that Will Magnus went and explored Dr. Savannah's little underground base, and in there he found a jar, and in the jar was the cocoon of Mr. Mind. Only when he found it was empty. So he brings it back to T.O. Morrow, and T.O. Morrow is just like, now what do you suppose hatched out of there? So issue 11 begins with Ralph Dibny ganging up on a couple members of the Cult of Connor and beating the crap out of them, asking them where their leader is so that he can go and talk to them and find out what they want, like what they're planning and what they're talking about with this resurrection stuff. But then he realizes that he's wailing on a kid, and that kind of shocks him, and the other Cult of Connor member comes over and whacks him over the head with a baseball bat. He's like, wait, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. And he hears a call coming in, and he's like, please be B, please be B. He's like, hello? It's like, Ralph Dibny, this is Bernie out at Opal City Storage. So that unit you rented, there's been a burglary. And so Ralph goes and deals with that. Meanwhile, Renee Montoya is meeting with Charlie, the Question, and they're there to meet with Kate Kane, which this is the first time that Charlie meets with her, but Kate's come along in order to give Renee the answers that she needs of like whether or not the Kane family does own the unit on 520. And Kate comes and she says, yep, we sure do, or at least we did, but not anymore. It's currently being rented. 6 weeks ago, it started being rented by the Rich Frederick Holding here in Gotham. And it turns out that the Rich Frederick Holding is a front for the Intergang. So that confirms Renee Montoya's suspicions that, like, yeah, the Intergang are the ones that owned the warehouse and supplying alien technology to people. So now they're going to go to Rich Frederick and break in order to get more information about what's going on. Kate Kane wants to come along, but Renee won't let her come. And Kate Kane's like, don't you think you owe me this? And she's like, no, I don't owe you anything. And Kate's just like, how can you say that? And Renee's like, goodbye, Kate. And they both leave. They head off to Rich Frederick, where they talk about how they need to go and find a woman known as Whisper Adair, who is a former agent for Ra's al Ghul, and a guy named Abbott, who are apparently working with Intergang. Like, these two are the key to finding out the information that they need. And at the same time, we see a mysterious figure, presumably, or possibly Batman, even though the rumors are that Batman's not in Gotham anymore, is listening in on their conversation. So they head to Rich Frederick, where they listen to a conversation that's going on between Abbott and some of his men that are there, and they've mentioned Kahndaq, which means that Black Adam's involved in this somehow, that, like, they've been receiving weapons from Kahndaq. So maybe, yeah, Black Adam's involved. When suddenly a wolf just attacks Renee and Charlie, and it turns out that this that Whisper Adair is in there too, and then the wolf transforms into Abbott because it turns out that they're all part animal, like they're all animal-human hybrids. So Adair is part snake, and she grabs Renee Montoya, and Montoya's like, nice to have met you, however briefly. Oh wait, no, it's Adair that's like, nice to have met you, however briefly, Mr. Abbott. And he's like, Whisper? They'll have to die, I'm afraid. And Charlie's just like, wait, come on, don't you even want to know why we're here, what we heard? It's like, that you heard anything is enough to satisfy my curiosity, sir. It's like, gentlemen, please, indulge yourselves. And she leaves, and they all turn into their animal hybrid forms. But that's when a Batarang flies into the room, shutting off all the lights. And Renee's like, I knew it, he didn't leave Gotham City. Batman's here to help us. But Batman isn't the one that shows up. Instead, the Bat Person, who I mentioned earlier, shows up, and Renee dubs her Batwoman. It's like, that's not a Batman, that's a Batwoman. And it's not a Batgirl either, it's a Batwoman. And so this Batwoman starts beating up all of the, like, helping them fight, like, the animal hybrids. Renee pulls her gun out, but Batwoman just throws a Batarang, knocking the gun out of her hand. So she realizes that this Batwoman has the same rules that Batman does. And then she takes a good look at Batwoman and sees that she has flowing red hair, and kind of realizes who this Batwoman likely is. It's Kate Kane, obviously. It's super obvious it's Kate Kane. They don't even try to hide it. So she says that the police are coming. She's like, I'd appreciate it if you kept me out of it. And so she just leaves, and Charlie's just like, I think she likes you. And Renee's like, shut up. So Ralph Dibny goes to his unit, where he sees that it's been broken in by the Cult of Connor. But when they go inside and take a look around the unit, he can't really see what's necessarily been stolen. But all we know is that the Cult of Connor are currently making a voodoo doll, like a giant voodoo doll looking thing of Sue Dibny, like wearing her clothes and also wearing her ring. So it's presumed, or like his ring. So they stole Ralph Dibny's ring. It's presumed that the other thing that they stole from the unit was her ring. And it seems they're trying to start a ritual to resurrect Sue Dibny. We don't know how this is going to turn out. I'm sure this is going to work out perfectly fine. She's not going to come back as some kind of zombie or something. Nah, there's no way. So, issue 12 begins with Renee Montoya having a conversation with Maggie Sawyer, where she finds out that because they broke into the place where Intergang was, Intergang has now shut down all their operations currently, but they'll probably be back. It just means that everyone's at square one. And so she just says, like, Renee, this is what you get for trying to be a hero. You put us back to square one again. So she heads back to her apartment, where she sees Charlie, and they come to the conclusion that they're going to have to go to Kahndaq, because that is a reoccurring thing that keeps being brought up whenever they investigate Intergang. So that seems to be where their answers might lie. Meanwhile, in Kahndaq, Black Adam's starting to change as a person because of Adriana. So Adriana has been teaching him to, instead of using his powers to bring together other superhumans to create a war against metahuman criminals, she's instead been teaching him to use his powers to just help the nearby villagers by, like, bringing them water and things like that. And he's become so attracted to her way of thinking that he wants her to continue to help him, but he doesn't think that she can do it as a regular human. So what he does is he brings her to the Rock of Eternity, where he discovers that Billy Batson, Captain Marvel, is the new Wizard Shazam, because the Wizard Shazam is dead, like he's gone, and so somebody else had to take his place, and it was Billy. Billy's going a little bit insane at the moment because he has to listen to the 7 deadly sins consistently. Black Adam also points out the fact that the word Shazam doesn't activate or deactivate their powers anymore, likely because the wizard is gone. So it seems like they're stuck in their forms at the moment. So what Black Adam wants is that he wants to give Adriana powers as well. The powers of Isis, another god. Adriana sees this as it's just Black Adam's way of trying to force her to be devoted to him. But no, Black Adam explains to her that he wants her to help him make the world a better place like she has been. And so she has to consider whether or not she's going to take the power or not. Because she believes that power corrupts. Meanwhile, Ralph Dibny meets, like, he tracks down and finds Cassie Sandsmark. He's like, did you think you could hide from me? You know, you broke into my unit to steal my wife's clothes. Why did you do that? And you also thought I wouldn't find you when a person with your same powers and stature was seen flying away from the unit. Like, do you know how easy you were to track? It wasn't that hard. Cassie explains that they needed her clothes and his ring in order to bring her back to life. And that they assumed that he would be against it, and that's why they've been trying to hide from him and stuff. And Ralph's like, well, you assumed wrong. Let me help. So he's so desperate to bring his wife back that he's willing to actually go through with this whole resurrection plan, which is crazy. They can end well. Adriana agrees. It's not that she just agrees to take the amulet from, like the Isis amulet from Black Adam. He kind of forces it onto her. He kind of pressures her into agreeing. She's like, power corrupts. It's like, it need not. You said that yourself. You've only just begun to show me a new way. I need your help. I need someone at my side. Take the amulet, Adriana. Let the words flow into you and through you. I hear it. A simple prayer. Say it, Adriana. Say it. I am Isis. And she transforms into Isis. It's like, Adriana? No, Teth Adam. Call me by my new name. And meanwhile, Billy's just like, stop snoring, sloth, like he's arguing with the 7 deadly sins. Like, I feel a power inside of me, Adam. Nature is calling me, asking me what it can do to help my crusade. I'm hoping it will be our crusade. Help me, Isis. Help me change the world for the better. It will, Adam. I will join you on your mission. As soon as we find my brother. And she has a bit of like a schemy look on her face, so I'm kind of wondering, is Adriana going to be corrupted by Isis? Like, is Isis going to turn out to be, a corrupted force for Adriana, who ends up being worse than Black Adam? Or does the opposite of what Black Adam was hoping? I guess we'll find out. So Ralph ends up going to the Cult of Connor ceremony where they're going to bring back Sue Dibny, and he's brought Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Metamorpho, and Zor-El with him, because 3 of them have all died, and one of them is an angel, and so he wants them as proof that, because they are proof that resurrection is possible, so he wants them at the ceremony to judge whether or not this is real. And they come to the conclusion that it's not real, because like the cult members are holding, like, handing out this blood kryptonite that draws upon their essence to flow into this voodoo doll of Sue Dibny. They're like, it's obviously a painted rock, and like the fire show is just that. It's just a fire show. It's not actually real. And the rock gets passed on to Ralph, who is really conflicted, They basically, like, his friends look at him and they're like, look, it's really up to you. You say the word and we'll either step in or back off. And so Ralph gets the stone passed to him, and we have to wait to see what his decision is, because we cut to Black Adam and Isis going to a slavery camp for children where they take down the guys there. Black Adam goes to kill them, but Isis convinces him not to kill them. So it turns out that she is going to be Black Adam's conscience and not evil or anything, which is great. So they save these children. They're all orphans. Sadly, they don't find her brother there, Amon, but they're going to continue searching for him. And in the meantime, they're going to bring these kids back to Karnak, and they will be able to live in Karnak, hopefully for the rest of their lives, with as much food and love as they deserve. And so Isis and Black Adam continue searching for more slavery camps to free people and hopefully find her brother. So Ralph Dibny makes it look like he doesn't believe in the cult. Like, he's still conflicted. So at this point in time, he throws the rock away. And they take that as a sign that, like, he wants them to shut down the cult. So, like, Metamorpho and Green Arrow and Green Lantern start fighting against the cult, which includes Cassie Sandsmark. Green Lantern ends up stopping Cassie from attacking Ralph, because she tries to use her lasso of truth on Green Lantern because it's yellow, but she doesn't realize that the Green Lanterns aren't weak to yellow anymore, so he just traps her. The leader of the cult, Devem, looks suspiciously like Connor Kent. Like, he looks so much like Connor Kent, it can't be a coincidence. I have a feeling that he is Connor Kent, or somehow related to him in some way. So Ralph beats up Connor. He's like, this way, hurry. He's like, what about Wonder Girl? Leave her. She should have known better. Then what? To trust a scam artist with a sick mind? He's like, Dibny, you don't understand. Shut your mouth, you piece of filth. You twisted me and you manipulated me. And you put me through hell. And for what? And then we see the Sue Dibny, like, voodoo doll crawling across the ground. And it grabs Ralph Dibny by the cloak and murmurs, Ralph? And she sees it. And Devem's like, you idiot. It's like, oh god, what have I... Stop. Ralph, what? Never mind, just get out of here, go. No, I was wrong. We were wrong. Hal, this wasn't a trick. And the roof starts caving in. He's like, please, I should have believed. We have to try again. He's like, Hal, we have no sacred waters. We have no kryptonite. Thanks to you, we have nothing. And Devem and Wonder Girl leave through the broken ceiling. Zoriel and Green Lantern and Metamorpho try to save as many people as they can. Ralph decides to stay with Sue Dibny's voodoo doll as the building explodes. So Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Zoriel, and Metamorpho find all the rubble of the explosion, and they find no signs of anyone in there. So they come to the conclusion that Ralph Dibny must still be alive somewhere. He survived somehow. And they're going to have to go and find him, but they don't know where he is. And it's revealed that Ralph is currently under a bridge holding the burnt remains of the Sue Dibny voodoo doll as he says, try again. He's like, try again. And he clearly looks like he's going insane. The thing I love about this is you don't know whether or not what Ralph saw actually happened. Like, you don't know if the voodoo doll really came back to life or not, or if that was just another sign of Ralph going insane and that he was having hallucinations of his wife actually becoming, like, coming back to life within this voodoo doll thing. That's interesting. Like, I'm curious to see where this goes, if it's revealed that Sue Dibny really did come back, or if that was all just in Ralph's imagination. So issue 14 begins with Renee Montoya and Charlie Sazaz arriving in Karnak, where they realize that it looks a lot different than they were expecting, especially in the brochure. It's no longer a war-torn country. Everything looks a lot more pristine and nice. People look really happy, and they have like pictures of Isis and Black Adam around, so it shows that the work that they're doing is actually making a difference. They're here in order to find the remnants of Intergang that are apparently in the Temple District. So they decide to head to the Temple District in order to find these Intergang members and question them about what they're doing. Meanwhile, Carla, a friend of John Henry Irons, goes to visit him because he's locked himself away for like a month because of what happened to Natasha. She's kind of begging him to come out. She says, like, I saw her on the news, how she was talking about how she wanted to become Luthor's new, like, JLA is what they're calling themselves. You know, talked about how eager they were to fill the shoes of Superman and Wonder Woman like that. You can't blame yourself for her mistakes, John. You understand me? You can't hold yourself responsible for what she does with her life. And she just like whams the door, and the door opens. And John's there. He's like, of course I can, Carla. John, leave me alone. My God, John, it's beautiful. It's a masterpiece. And we see that John is building a suit for Natasha. It's like, it's not. It's too little, too late. And we get like a nice reveal of her own suit that he was building for her, but unfortunately she's already made the decision to join with Luthor, and he may not be able to save her. Like, it's my fault, Carla. I drove Natasha right to him. She's the most important thing in my world, and now Lex Luthor owns her soul. And I don't know how to begin to get her back. Meanwhile, Dr. Magnus is failing to, like, he tries to bring back his robot Mercury, but fails to do so, because the power source just isn't working properly that he uses, the responsometer. And there are a couple of guys in business suits that want to buy the metal men, but he says that they're not for sale, and he's not giving them to anyone, especially guys that only want to use them as weapons. So Magnus goes and talks to T.O. Morrow. When he gets there, there's a mad scientist trying to break out, and so like he gets taken down, and they're like, oh, that's just a regular Tuesday, you know, mad scientists always trying to break out of here. So Magnus enters the building and he finds that T.O. Morrow is missing, and so is all his stuff. So it seems like he might have been kidnapped by the same people that kidnapped Dr. Sivana. And all they find is an envelope addressed to Magnus, and when Magnus opens it, there's a bunch of codes on it, and he says that it's machine code. And so he decides to take it back to his underground bunker. So Renee and Charlie continue looking for the Temple District. At the same time, they're being followed by that guy Abbott, who turned into a half wolfman. And by the time they get to where Intergang is supposed to be, they enter to find that they've all been slaughtered, probably by Abbott, because he doesn't want any of them squealing to Renee or Charlie. And so they start investigating around, and Charlie's like, well, it doesn't seem like there's any answers here, so let's leave. And as they leave the building, they find that Konduk's forces are surrounding them, and that they're under arrest by Black Adam. And Renee's just like, tell me today's not Wednesday. Meanwhile, Dr. Magnus succeeds in bringing Mercury online, and it turns out that the machine code that T.O. Morrow gave him was the key to bringing back the Metal Men. And so it seems like Magnus is gonna, bring all the Metal Men back and fully functioning, which is exciting because I like the Metal Men. And maybe they'll help him find all the missing scientists. So issue 15 begins with Booster Gold still mad at the Supernova for stealing his role as Metropolis' savior. So he asks Skeets if there's anything he can do to prove himself that he's a hero. But again, he has the wrong ideas when it comes to that, because he keeps turning down small things like stopping burglaries and stuff because he sees that as too small. But that's the problem, Booster. It's like, you should be doing the small things as well as the big things, not just picking the big things because it's better for your image. But he learns of a nuclear submarine explosion in Metropolis, and he thinks that that's just something that, like, Aquaman has to deal with. But then when he finds out what was inside the submarine, he decides that he's going to spring into action and try to stop it. Because it turns out that inside the submarine was a giant alien creature that is now attacking Metropolis. So he goes to try and stop it. Meanwhile, Renee and Charlie have been taken to Konduk prison, where the prisoners and the officers are all awful people who torture them and stuff. So they're taking Renee to her daily torture session when she realizes, she looks into Charlie's cell where he's supposed to be, and he's not there. Like, she can't see him. So she's like, what did you do with my friend? And so as she's struggling against these two guys, she notices that there's smoke inside the cell. And she's like, oh, this is Charlie's plan. Like, he's obviously camouflaging himself or something so that they can't see him. So she starts causing trouble, getting them close enough to the cell that Charlie can just come out of nowhere and punch through the cell, punching this cop in the face. And that gives Renee the upper hand against this other guy. So she, like, kicks him in the gut and elbows him in the face, knocking him out and grabbing the key so she can undo her shackles. Turns out Charlie was in the cell the entire time. He was invisible somehow. They don't really explain it. I guess he was hiding under the bed or something. But yeah, he unlocks his cell and frees him from prison, and they make their escape. Meanwhile, Clark learns of the giant monster that's attacking Metropolis and decides to go outside in order to write a story about it and see what happens. He finds that Booster is there trying to stop this monster. Booster tries to stop the monster by, first of all, stealing a woman's car and throwing it at the monster, which does nothing. He then tries to rip apart the powers of the giant power cord in the railway system. But all that does is just shut down the entire Midtown electricity. So everyone hates him even more because he's destroyed the power in like a large chunk of the city. And that's when Supernova shows up. Because of course he does. It's like, oh, Supernova, oh, thank God. And Supernova just gets rid of the alien monster. Like, he just makes it disappear. But he doesn't get rid of the submarine. Just the monster. It's like, and everyone's just like, yeah, Supernova, hey, Booster, you suck. You're welcome. It's over, Booster, give me your hand. Like, Supernova is just a really nice guy. He kind of reaches out to Booster. He tries to be nice to him. He's like, just ignore these people's insults. You know you can be a great hero. I mean, you know, ignore the insults, Booster. You're not going to pay attention to these people, are you? Of course you aren't. I mean, why start now, right? So it's kind of like, he's kind of being nice, but at the same time, Supernova is being a bit of a dick. And Booster's just like, rah, and just attacks Supernova and starts fighting him. He's like, shut up, Skeets. You know, I've had it with this smug bastard. He's pushed me too far. You can't bully me, you Cape Creep. You're not the hero in this city. I am. So you can go to hell. Like, listen to yourself. You're not a hero. You're a billboard. You turn my stomach. You never had the confidence to earn people's respect. So you tried to buy it. Well, guess what? Metropolis found out the truth about Booster Gold. Stage stunts he can handle, but in a genuine crisis, and Booster Gold like uses his force field against Supernova. He's like, I can do the job. What's your track record, you flash in the pan? Who needs you? And Skeets just starts numbering off all the good things that Supernova has been doing, and Booster's just like, shut up, Skeets. But then Skeets tells Booster that he has readings from the submarine, the leftover submarine, that there is radiation leaking into the city. So Booster decides to prove that he's the real hero by taking the submarine out of the city. So what he does is he contains all the radiation in his force field and lifts the submarine up into the air. And as he's doing so, Clark is like, what is he doing? Like, the radiation is going to overpower his force field. It's straining too much. It's like, that's right, every damn body. Forget Supernova. The name with the claim to fame is Booster Gold. And I'm back, baby. And we get a shot of Booster, like, looking all happy, smiling. And then the submarine just explodes. And Skeets is like, Michael! This wasn't in the records. This wasn't supposed to happen. Save him. We'll catch him, Skeets. We won't let him fall. And so Supernova goes up and he grabs Booster. It's like, oh my god, hold on, Booster. Hold. And he brings Booster down to the ground. And Clark's like, is he? I tried to save him, No. Oh, Michael. And they look at Booster Gold's body, and he is just a skeleton. So it seems like Booster Gold has possibly died, or is this just another publicity stunt to make himself look like a hero? He's gone with the classic hero sacrifice and resurrection kind of thing. I guess we'll have to find out. Alright, issue 16 begins with Black Adam bringing Isis to a little surprise that he's made with for her with the children that they saved from the slavery camps. They've been building a garden for Isis, and she sees that there's an empty part there, and she's like, oh, like, is this empty part for me? Like, what should I build here? And Black Adam's like, what should I plant here? And Black Adam's like, nothing, because that is supposed to like, symbolize the fact that we haven't found your brother yet. So once we find him, he will plant the final thing in this garden. He then pulls out a diamond and he says that ever since he met Isis, she's been helping him become a better person and helping him bring light to Karnak. And so he wants her to become his queen and his wife, and that they're going to get married tomorrow. They've only known each other for 13 weeks. And, but Isis doesn't care. She is very clearly in love with Black Adam. So she is just floored when he asks her. Meanwhile, Renee Montoya and Charlie Saz, or Victor Saz, are currently fugitives after they were framed for the murder of members of Intergang. They were framed by Intergang. Originally, they thought that the rat poison that had killed these guys was done to frame them, but Renee figures out that the rat poison was there to use as a coagulant for the suicide bomb that was used to kill those guys. Now, there were 3 empty boxes of rat poison in the room. Well, no, there were 6 empty boxes of rat poison in the room, but you only need 3 to set off, like, for one suicide bomb. So she assumes that there must be another suicide bomb, and that because the wedding is happening today, that somebody is going to show up at the wedding and try and blow up the crowd and kill a lot of people while Black Adam and Isis get married. So they decide to head to the wedding in order to stop the suicide bomber. Meanwhile, Mary Marvel is going to be the maid of honor at the wedding, and she is just shocked. She's like, why are you marrying Black Adam? Like, he's a terrible guy. You've only known him for 13 weeks. And Isis is like, well, he's not as bad as he used to be. Like, he's changing as a person. Like, he's smiling. And Miss Marvel's like, she's smiling? What? Like, Black Adam never smiles. Like, maybe this is like a magic thing. Like, maybe you only like him because of the magic. And Isis is like, I thought that too. But I've turned from human to Isis many, many times, and my feelings still remain the same. And besides, you agreed to become my maid of honor. You didn't just do that because Captain Marvel told you to, right? And Miss Marvel's like, I guess not. Like, I guess I'm just going to have to go through with this wedding and hope that it turns out okay. Meanwhile, there's a really funny scene between Black Adam and Captain Marvel, because Captain Marvel is going to be their officiant at the wedding because they need somebody from the Rock of Eternity to be able to officiate their wedding. And Black Adam's worried about there being blood on his cloak and the fact that he's receding and stuff. Like, he's getting self-conscious about the wedding. And Captain Marvel's like, oh, you're worried? And he's like, no, I'm not. I'm not worried about anything. You know, my family, all of them are long dead. I thought, you have made your Marvel family. Perhaps it's not too late to make mine. So it's like Black Adam kind of longing to have what Captain Marvel has. So the wedding starts coming together, all the crowd are being brought together, the food is being brought in, you know, Renee and Charlie make their way into the crowd, and there is a young woman who Renee sees is definitely the suicide bomber, because she pulls out a backpack, and she's very young, she's a kid, like she's a young teen. And so the ceremony starts, and Black Adam and Isis come together, and they start saying their vows, and they all say Shazam, which calls down a big strike of lightning, which is used to help officiate the wedding. Meanwhile, as they're doing their vows and stuff, Renee is trying to stop this young girl from setting off her bomb, and Charlie's just like, just shoot her, and Renee's like, I can't, like, she's a kid, I can't shoot this kid. And Charlie's like, you're running out of time, you gotta do it, like, you just gotta do it, Renee. And so this young woman almost sets off the bomb as the wedding is officially over. Like, Black Adam and Isis kiss. And as they kiss, a big crack of thunder happens. And at the same time, Renee shoots the young woman, killing her. And she's like, oh, Mary full of grace, just a kid. Charlie's like, Renee, You didn't have a choice. Renee's like, tell her that. And the last shot we get is like the young girl's hand in her pool of blood, and in the reflection of the blood, you can see Isis and Black Adam together after getting married. So Isis and Black Adam head home, and they're ready to just spend the night together, and Black Adam's like, it's just been a very long time since I never thought I'd feel this way again. And I never thought all my wishes would come true so quickly. Almost, all of them, your brother. The search will continue tomorrow, but tonight, we are husband and wife for the first time. Let's not waste it. And then they go and have sex. Meanwhile, Adam Strange and Starfire and Animal Man all get into their little spaceship that they've put together to escape from the planet that they're trapped on. And they launch off the planet into space. And it ends with Adam Strange going, we're going home. So we'll find out probably in the coming issues what happens to them now that they've escaped from the planet. So issue 17 begins with Lex Luthor's JLA chilling out at his little pad. They've been going out on missions, doing good. But now they're talking about getting new costumes and new code names. This is the team that Natasha Irons is a member of. Lex Luthor is planning for them to go on talk shows and stuff tomorrow. And there's one member of the team called Eliza who is doing drugs. And it's because she was given super speed by Lex Luthor, but one of the drawbacks is that she can't slow down, and so she uses these drugs to slow down. And Lex and Mercy try to stop her from using drugs, but that just causes her to get pissed at them. She ends up storming out of the room, and Lex is like, well, Eliza will not be joining you tomorrow, it seems. Now then, Hannibal, about your diet. And so he goes and deals with another member of the JLA. Meanwhile, Starfire, Adam Strange, and Animal Man are all flying through a field of comets, or asteroids, and Starfire and Adam Strange aren't getting along very well. Adam Strange can't really explain why, but part of me feels like it has something to do with the fact that during Infinite Crisis, Adam Strange had teamed up with Blackfire, Starfire's sister, and Blackfire had turned against him and killed Hawkwoman, like, had killed some of his friends and tried to kill his family and stuff, so maybe he's holding resentment towards Starfire because of that, and he doesn't even realize it. That's my theory. But yeah, because they're not getting along, Starfire has decided to leave the ship and is blasting asteroids and stuff, even though he's told her that that's not going to help. Also, Adam Strange is blind at the moment because of the Zeta Beam problem, you know, because his eyes didn't come with him when he teleported. And so Animal Man is having to help him get through the asteroid field by giving him directions. The other problem is that the ship they're on wasn't built to last. It was supposed to be kind of like a lifeboat. Adam Strange was hoping that they were going to come across another ship that they'd be able to swap over to, because this ship is slowly running out of air. So if they don't find another ship or someone to help them soon, they will die in 6 days. Things go from bad to worse when the pursuer catches up to them, the guy that was trying to kill them on the alien planet. He tries to kill them again, but all of a sudden, they can see his insides, and it's because Lobo arrives and just slaughters him. Just slices this pursuer apart. That's right, Lobo has shown up. So Starfire goes out and meets with Lobo. Animal Man doesn't even know who Lobo is, because he's never met him before. And Starfire has a nice little conversation with Lobo, where he literally rips her armor casing off, revealing her boobs, and we don't get to see it, but you know, he does that. It's kind of weird. And they have a conversation, and basically she convinces him to help them because she has wealthy parents and a lot of money that she can give him. And Lobo only agrees because apparently he's seen Christ. He's like joined the church and is against violence now, even though he just ripped apart that pursuer and like gutted him. Apparently he's against violence now, so he's going to help them get through this asteroid field and find food and stuff because he knows exactly where to go. So they start to follow Lobo, and he actually takes the head of the pursuer off of its body and puts it on the end of the spear that the pursuer was carrying around, and then attaches it to his bike and starts riding along with this spear with a head on top of it. It's pretty badass. He's also got a top hat on now. He's got more of a steampunk look to him, which is pretty great. Meanwhile, Red Tornado is revealed to still be active. He wakes up somewhere and is repeatedly saying 52, 52. And one of the guys that has found him is like, 52? Nah, mate. Australia. And so it turns out Red Tornado is in Australia. Now, it is very clear that the men in this panel are supposed to be Aborigine. And yet the way that their dialogue is written is very clearly just like Bogan. Now I'm not saying that there aren't like Aborigine people that speak Bogan, but these are very clearly like native Aborigine, and it's very unlikely that they would speak with like Bogan slang and stuff, you know. But maybe, you know, I don't know. You never know. Alright, issue 18 begins at the House of Mystery, which is usually where the fate of the Helmet of Fate is being kept ever since Nabu died during Infinite Crisis. There is a character called Terry who shows up. She's there to see a man called Timothy Trench. She finds him just sitting in a chair with the Helmet of Fate on, and she goes to touch him. She's like, why are you just sitting there? Goes to touch him, and he just falls into a puddle of water. And Detective Chimp is there, and he's like, is anybody else's nose twitching? Because he senses that there might be a mystery to solve. Meanwhile, because they stopped the suicide bomber, Black Adam wants to give Charlie and Renee medals for their bravery. But Renee doesn't show up to the ceremony, and this really pisses Adam off. And so he goes to find her, and he finds Renee just sleeping with one of his citizens. And she's like, you don't really want me to... He's like, what the hell do you think you're doing? She's like, you don't really want me to answer that, do you? And he's like, you are insulting me by doing this. You know, like, how could you treat me in this way? We were trying to give you this medal, which is a great honor. You know, I ask you again, do you mean to insult me and my new bride? Or is there some other explanation? She's like, get that thing out of my face. He's like, you pushed too far, woman. And he grabs her by the neck. He's like, I haven't changed, man, but not that changed. And Isis is like, Adam. He's like, that's it. That's right. Just do it, Renee says as tears start pouring out of her eyes. You know, because she's feeling, you know, really depressed after killing a young teen. And Isis comes up to Adam and is like, this helps nothing. And so Adam just throws Renee. It's like, her grief and your anger are both misplaced. Isis is right. I killed a kid, Charlie, and you're going to be eating your liver. What's left of it, over that for years to come. But none of us are talking about why that girl was there in the first place. And handing out medals, lovely as they might be, or going on week-long benders with the prettiest lass in Sharuda doesn't solve the problem. Doesn't even address it. The problem is Intergang. On top of everything else, along with their monster men and their weapons, why are they using kids? A good question, Charles. It must be stopped. Then let us stop it. And so, Black Adam, Charlie, Renee, and Isis are all going to get together and try and figure out how to stop Intergang. Meanwhile, Ralph Dibny meets up with Detective Chimp, and he asks Detective Chimp to get in contact with Shadow Pact because they might be able to help them figure out who killed Timothy Trench. And they currently have the Helmet of Fate with them. That Terry woman put like a force field around it to keep people from putting the helmet on and going insane. Meanwhile, Clark Kent and Skeets are working together to put a funeral on for Booster Gold, who died in a recent issue. And they had to go all the way to Cincinnati because it's the only city that they could find that doesn't hate Booster. And nobody cares about the funeral, and Clark's just like, wow, like, this sucks. You know, Booster wasn't the greatest guy ever, but he doesn't deserve a funeral like this. All of a sudden, Skeets just sees some random guy and is like, oh, sorry, Mr. Ken, I've got something that I need to do. I need to go talk to someone. And so he quickly goes and, like, talks to this random dude that he finds on the street. Turns out this guy's name is Daniel Carter. And he scans Daniel and comes to the conclusion that there is a 100% chance that Daniel Carter is a descendant of Michael Carter, who is Booster Gold. And so he says to Daniel, he's like, contact me tonight on the number I've beamed to your cell phone, Daniel Carter. We need to talk about your future. So it seems like Skeets is already thinking of making this Daniel Carter guy the new Booster Gold, since he is Booster's great great grandson or something. Great 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 grandson. So Ralph Dibny and Detective Chimp meet with Shadow Pact, and all of a sudden, like, they're gonna figure out who killed Timothy, right? All of a sudden, the Helmet of Fate just starts talking to Ralph, saying that he will promise Ralph to like, he can give Ralph the answers he's looking for, but Ralph has to be ready to go through the trial of fate. And in order to go through the trial of fate, it means having to put the helmet on. And if his will isn't strong enough, then he'll end up like Timothy. Because it turns out Timothy Trench was too, like, happy-go-lucky to put the helmet on, because he found the helmet, and so he tried to put it on, and apparently that's what killed him. He didn't have the will to wear it. And nobody else realizes that the helmet is talking to Ralph. So Ralph just picks up the helmet. He's like, I am. And everyone's like, what the hell is he doing? Like, why is he picking up the helmet? He's like, you heard what it said, and I'm ready. And the helmet's like, then our pilgrimage begins. It's like, yo, Dibny, wait. Pilgrimage, I like that. Okay, is it just me? Or does he think that the helmet was talking to him? So, Ralph is swearing that he's not going insane. You know, like he said, I had a moment where I started going crazy. And, but I'm not. So this could be one of those situations where we as the reader think that the helmet is talking to Ralph, but that's only because Ralph thinks that the helmet is talking to him. And in reality, he's still insane and is hallucinating all of this. That's the thing that I like about this Ralph story so far, is you don't know what's real and what isn't, like what's in Ralph's head and what isn't, you know? So issue 19 begins with Skeets inside the house of Daniel Carter. He's become more and more sure that Daniel is related to Booster because of how similar their houses are and their personalities. Daniel draws a shotgun on Skeets, telling him to get out of his house, but that quickly switches over to them having a lovely conversation together about Daniel being a football player, which is similar to Michael. But unlike Michael, he didn't end up becoming a janitor, and so Skeets tries to explain to Daniel that he can help him become a superhero because Michael is his ancestor. And Daniel's like, yeah, but nobody in my family is a superhero. And Skeets is like, no, but Michael is your family, and he is a superhero. And what I can do is that I can synergize, like, your DNA with the Booster Gold DNA, allowing you to use all his equipment and stuff and become a superhero. It's like, what if, in return for your aid, I offered you a chance to relive that moment of football glory over and over and over again for all time? Like, I'm being asked to entrust my future to a flying toaster. That's a pretty huge gamble. Gambling runs in the Carter blood. And so he manages to convince Daniel Carter to help him, because he just wants Daniel to go to this same facility that Booster Gold went to. Because remember when he went to Rip Hunter's underground bunker and he saw that he was the reason why time was changing? Apparently he never told Skeets that. And so he wants Daniel to go in there and see what Booster saw. So, meanwhile, on another planet, Lobo brings Adam Strange, Starfire, and Animal Man to this planet, and it's the planet where Lobo has opened up a church and has become all holy. Apparently there was a star system called 3500, System 3500, which had been completely destroyed, and the remnants from that star system ended up on this planet to die. And Lobo is going to be leading some of those people through a pilgrimage. We don't know what that pilgrimage is, but that's just what he calls it. And he invites Animal Man, Starfire, and Adam Strange to come with him on this pilgrimage. And they ask him who was the one responsible for putting a bounty on their heads. And Lobo answers them saying that it was the one that was responsible for destroying System 3500, or Sector 3500, and left a trail of rubble and tears 30 light years wide. And then, but Lobo says, like, but she ain't the one we're running from. And so he, is alluding to some other evil that is chasing after them or something. And not even the person that actually put the bounty on their head. So I guess we'll find out what that is later. For now, Supernova is dealing with, the guy that's currently protecting Metropolis. He's dealing with Weather Wizard. And Wonder Girl arrives and helps him. It's like, flood averted, nicely done. We haven't officially met. They call me Supernova. Wonder Girl. Been off the scene for a little while. It's a pleasure to be back. You don't recognize me? Clearly my loss. I haven't gotten around the community as much as I might have. Respect my personal space, please. And she's just like, oh, because she gets a little bit close to him. And he's like, I'm sorry, I thought you were a friend. Thanks again for the assist, Wonder Girl. Take care. And Wonder Girl's just like, I will, Connell. And so she believes, or maybe she knows, that Supernova is Connell. I don't know who Supernova is. But that would be a fun little idea. Like, that, it's possible, I guess we'll find out eventually. So, Daniel Carter arrives at the facility and he heads down into the bunker where he sees exactly what Booster Gold saw. Pictures of it saying, like, oh, it's all his fault and stuff like that. But Daniel doesn't really understand what it means. However, Skeets is watching this all through Daniel's goggles. And so he sees the pictures and Skeets immediately knows what happened. He knows that Booster came in here and figured out that he was responsible for changing time. So as soon as Skeets sees what Daniel sees, Skeets just says he knows. And then he pulls his, like, jack out of the computer system, shutting the doors and locking Daniel inside the bunker. And Daniel's just like, whoa, Skeets, what's happening? Skeets! Vortex? No! And a vortex opens up behind Daniel. It's like, Skeets, open the door, get me out of here! Hurry, something's pulling at me, Skeets, please! Meanwhile, Skeets is hacking into the system. He sets it to open to 1 million... He sets it to open 1 million AD. And then Daniel gets sucked into the vortex. He's like, you promised me glory, you promised me a chance to relive my moment. And you shall, Daniel, over and over and over again, for all eternity. I'm sorry I had to be this way, Daniel. I truly am. And he's like, no! And he gets sucked into the vortex. Like, but you served your purpose. He knows. So it's presumed that, like, Daniel being sucked into this vortex means he's going to relive that football game that he wanted to relive over and over again, like winning it. And that it's going to take a million years or, like, a very long time before he gets freed from this vortex. So Skeets is acting pretty dark. And has just basically sent this guy to eternity, reliving the same memory and over and over again, while he goes off and does whatever Skeets is planning to do next. He knows that Booster knows the real reason behind time changing is that it's his fault. Like, now Skeets knows that Booster knows that. And so, yeah, he's gonna head off and do something about it. Alright, so issue 20 begins with news reports talking about how there's... Like, they don't know that it's Batwoman, but we know it's Batwoman. It's going around taking down criminals in Gotham City, but they believe that maybe there's a new Batman or Batman's back. And Supernova is currently inside the Batcave, looking around, pulling off, like, pieces of fabric and stuff. He sees, like, Robin's costume, and then he pulls off another fabric, like, sheet. And there's an Infinity Gauntlet-looking thing. It's like a Kryptonite Gauntlet or something, or it's like the DC equivalent of a... It just looks like the Infinity Gauntlet, with, like, little jewels in it, basically. Except it's black and green. I assume it came from, like, a Lex Luthor robot, and it's a Kryptonite Gauntlet. I don't know. I don't know what it is. He doesn't say what it is. Meanwhile, there's a fire going on in a building, and John Henry Irons helps stop helps lift the building up so they can get everybody to safety, because he's made out of molten steel, so he can help, with the fire and stuff. So they save everybody just as the building explodes. And John just walks out of the flames. Like, water, get the water on him. And they all put water on him to cool him down. It's like, so, anybody got some metal polish or a scrubbing pad? And they'll start clapping. They're all like, yeah, thanks for helping us, John. He's like, it's all in a day's work. And that's when Carla arrives and tells John that she's been investigating the everyman, like, metahuman gene thing that Lex has created. And it turns out Lex has the ability to not only give people powers, but also take away the powers that he's given. And that's not good. You know, John's like, we got trouble. Then we cut back to the Lobo plot that's currently going on. The Adam Strange, Starfire, and Animal Man plot that is very clearly written by Grant Morrison because of how weird it is. So Lobo, you know, has this church on this planet full of refugees, and he's in possession of this thing called the Eye of Ekron, which apparently has, like, limitless power, and, like, one of so Lobo has, like, a dolphin that he talks to. It's, like, his little, confidant or whatever. Or, like, it kind of, like, speaks for Lobo, and I don't know, it praises Lobo, and, like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like his little sidekick. And the sidekick dolphin is like, hey, why don't you use the Eye of Ekron to save everyone on the planet? And Lobo's like, you know why we can't use it. And then the planet suddenly gets swarmed by these parasite bugs that are going to eat the planet. And so they start swarming it, and Lobo gets swarmed by them, and they eat him, but he's going to be fine because he can regenerate from literally nothing. Animal Man is able to take on the qualities of one of the parasites, and it gives him the ability to jump around and shoot fireballs and stuff. So he starts shooting fireballs at these parasites. Starfire is trying to help as well. Adam Strange comes in his ship and starts blasting at the parasites. Lobo getting attacked by the parasites actually causes him to drop the chest that the Eye of Ekron is in. And so the Eye of Ekron falls out of the chest. A little alien picks it up and uses it, causing a massive blast of energy that kills a bunch of the parasites, but also kills a lot of the people that are just standing around them as well. Because you can't really control the power of the Eye of Ekron. But Starfire sees this happen and gets an idea. She picks up the Eye of Ekron and she uses its power to destroy all of the parasites. But in doing so, she creates such a massive blast that a mysterious, it's like a giant alien head, sees it from from distant space and starts making its way towards the planet that they are currently on. So Lobo gets really pissed at Starfire for using the Eye of Ekron. He's like, why are you so mad? Like, I saved the planet. He's like, the reason why I'm mad is because now, you using that eyeball, now it's coming after us. Like, he is coming after us. And Starfire's like, who is he? Can you at least just tell me who it is? It's like, where do you think the Eye of Ekron came from? It was taken from the emerald head of Ekron. You know, and he's pissed that his eye's gone, and he's gonna come back and get it. And so that's what that giant floating head was. It's the emerald head of Ekron, and it's going to come towards them to get its emerald eye back, and also kill them as well. So they're in pretty deep danger right now. This whole plot is like, I love Lobo, and I do like alien stuff and that, but this is a Grant Morrison, like, plot, very, like, it's so clearly Grant Morrison that, like, was leading this Lobo plot because of how weird this whole church thing is, and the Emerald Eye of Ekron and the Emerald Head of Ekron. Like, it just reeks of Grant Morrison, which means you have to read it a couple of times to really understand what's actually going on. So, issue 21 begins with Lex Luthor just organizing some meetings and stuff when Natasha Irons comes in to convince him to give Eliza a second chance. Eliza is the speedster that is having to use drugs in order to slow down. Natasha says that Eliza is no longer on the drugs and that she promises to listen to orders and try to be a good hero for his team. And he agrees, and that makes Eliza really excited because her dream is to become the new Kid Flash and to become a member of the Teen Titans, because she's always looked up to Bart Allen and Impulse for a very long time. If she looked up to Impulse, I don't get why she wants to be Kid Flash. Wouldn't she want to be Impulse and not that title? Because, like, Kid Flash is not Bart's original title. So wouldn't it make more sense that she'd want to be Impulse? Either way, she's really happy that she's going to be able to go on this mission with the team. Meanwhile, Ralph Dibny goes and meets with this demon called Zolotl, who is the demon guard for the Mictlan Gate. Beyond the Mictlan Gate is the underworld, where Lord Mictlantecutli, I hope I pronounced that as well as I could, is, you know, it's his domain, and this is part of Ralph's, like, Helmet of Fate trials, or pilgrimage, that's what it is, pilgrimage. In order to convince this demon to let him through the gate, he brought some gingold with him. Gingold is the herb that allowed him to stretch. So what he did was he gave Xolotl the gingold while he was out cold, because Dr. Fate's, because the Helmet of Fate knocked him out. And then, like, turned Xolotl into a demon pretzel by, you know, rolling him up into a bowl and stuff. And he says to Xolotl that eventually the gingold will wear off, and when it does, he'll have to listen to his bones start breaking once his body becomes stiff again. So they can let him in, or they can just wait. And if he doesn't let them in, he can just wait until he dies painfully. But if he lets them in, then they'll be able to, like, untie him before that happens. So he reluctly agrees. So we're seeing that Ralph is becoming, like, quite dark and sadistic. So Lex Luthor's team, who are now officially named Infinity Inc., the new Infinity Inc., are sent out to deal with Blockbuster. The new Blockbuster. He's a guy that is just really buff. He's basically DC's version of the Hulk, mixed with, like kind of that Jekyll and Hyde idea, you know? So there was an old Infinity Inc., and this is the new Infinity Inc., and a lot of the members have the same names as the old ones. So there's, like, Skyman and, like, a new version of Nuklon. So they start fighting Blockbuster, and as they are fighting Blockbuster, they do manage to take him down, and that's when the Teen Titans show up. But it's not your normal roster of the Teen Titans. It's the current Teen Titans during the 1 year gap, because Robin, Superboy, Wonder Girl, you know, and Kid Flash, they're all out of the picture right now. So the lineup is probably the most obscure lineup of Teen Titans we've ever had. The only notable members that are on this team that people really know are Beast Boy and Raven. The rest of the members are Power Boy, Sunspot, Little Barda, and Zachary Zatara. And I'm not going to explain any of them because I don't really know anything about them yet. I am reading Geoff Johns' Teen Titans, and I'm sure that'll explain them a little bit more, but it doesn't really matter because they're there to just be like, what the hell are you doing? There was an old Infinity Inc., you know, they were the sons and daughters of the JSA. Like, what are you doing? Or, wait, was it? Yeah, it is the Justice Society. So they try to tell this new Infinity Inc. to give Blockbuster over to them because they know how to deal with supervillains, while Infinity Inc. is that they're too new for this, for dealing with a supervillain like this. Causes quite a bit of a disagreement between the two of them, but eventually, you know, because Natasha is pretty headstrong about dealing with this themselves, but then Eliza comes in and is like, hey, they're the Teen Titans, like, we should trust them. You know, they're good at their job, they know what they're doing, let's hand Blockbuster over to them. But all of a sudden, Blockbuster just wakes up, breaks out of his confines, and starts attacking everyone. And so Eliza decides that she's going to stop Blockbuster herself. She's like, he's getting in the way. Today I've become a star. And she heads up to him, and Blockbuster jumps up to the top of a building. Eliza runs up the building towards him, jumps over him, starts punching him. And, as she's punching Blockbuster, Lex Luthor turns off her powers. He presses a button, and all of a sudden, she can't hurt him anymore. And then Blockbuster just grabs her by the head and breaks her neck and kills her. And then immediately after she dies, Lex Luthor tells Mercy to look for another Caucasian woman to replace her. So we're already seeing that, yeah, Lex Luthor is still a trash. Like, he's human garbage. You know, he turned off her powers specifically so that she would die. He murdered Eliza just so he could replace her because he didn't want her on the team to begin with. It's like he was planning this from the beginning. I believe he set up this whole Blockbuster thing just so Eliza would die, essentially. And he might not have been expecting the Teen Titans to show up. But yeah, Eliza's dead. She never gets to join the Teen Titans. She never gets to be Kid Flash. And so everyone goes to his funeral, and Lex Luthor, like the piece of human trash he is, pretends that he even gives a shit and is like giving like a little speech about Eliza, but he doesn't give a crap, you know? And that's when the Teen Titans pretty much break up. Like, Sunspot leaves, so does Power Boy and Little Barda. So all that's left on the team is Zedhara, Raven, and Beast Boy. And then John Henry Irons shows up at the funeral in order to meet with Natasha because he wants to talk to her about her powers. And Natasha is like, you still want to talk to me about that? Like, I just lost my friend. Now's not the time to ask about my powers. You know? Look at all these people. Look at who they are here for. Just leave me alone. Beast Boy comes up to him and is like, Mr. Irons, we know something's not right. How can the Titans help? Meanwhile, we head to Australia where we know that Red Tornado ended up there. And there's this character known as Johnny Warara. Oh, Warawa? Yeah, that's a really hard word to say. Johnny Warawa. And he's built a new body for Red Tornado, is the big reveal. Alright, so issue 22 begins with Lex Luthor trying to figure out who Supernova is. And, you know, they get footage of Wonder Girl talking to Supernova, and they find some footage of Wonder Girl saying that Supernova is Connell. But Lex Luthor is like, you idiots, it can't be my son, because my son didn't have telescopic vision. You know, isn't that right, Supernova? It's like, sir, who are you talking to? Him! And Lex just pulls that, like, points out the window at Supernova, and Supernova's just, like, flying next to the window looking at him. He thinks he can fool me, fool us all, but he gives himself away whenever he strikes a pose like that. Who is Supernova, Strauss? Let me draw you a picture. And he draws Superman's symbol on the window. And so Lex Luthor believes that Supernova is Superman. And that he's doing it to toy with him. He's like, because it's always about you. Dennis, set up the sampler again. I want some new metagene test results. On who? Test run. On who, sir? On me. So Lex Luthor plans on testing the metagene on himself. Meanwhile, we meet this guy called John Standing Bear, who is a Native American character. He's on a bus where there's this sleazy dude harassing a woman, so he just punches him straight out of the bus because John has powers. Yeah, the woman tries to acquaint herself with John, but John just doesn't want anyone to do anything to do with her. It's like, you don't want to know me. It's like, why not? You seem like a nice guy, John Standing Bear. Don't you want to fly too? I'd only fall. Watch yourself in the clouds. Because he's been contemplating, like, he's been looking at, like, the metahuman journal thing, so it's presumed that he got the metahuman gene put into himself, or he was thinking of going and seeing it or something. I don't know. But it also seems like he does have superpowers already because of the way that he just punched a guy straight through a bus. Lex goes and gets the gene tested on himself, but apparently this isn't the first time he's tried it because it failed, and apparently it's failed many times. Like, Lex Luthor can't use the metagene on himself, which is really funny. He created something that can give people superpowers, and the only person it doesn't seem to work on, or one of the people it doesn't seem to work on, is himself. John heads back to his home where his granddad lives. He hates his granddad, and he hates his dad, but his granddad is like, I don't care if you hate me, I gotta tell you the origin of our ancestors, which is, many years ago, a meteorite fell in front of your ancestors. His name was Flying Stag, and we call it the Sky Stone, and it gave him tremendous abilities to leap and punch people really hard and stuff like that. And he started calling himself the Super Chief, and he wears like a mask that's like a black furry mask with little horns on it. And he says, and now it's your time, like, to take over and become the new Super Chief. And he opens up a nearby closet, and the Sky Stone is inside it on a little necklace. It's like a necklace. And the mask, the black furry mask with the little horns, is in the closet as well. And John's granddad asks for one thing in return, and that's death. He asks his grandson to kill him. And so John puts the necklace on, or like he doesn't put it on, but he has it in his hand. And he grabs a pillow and kills his granddad. He's like, "There, you're saved, Grandpa. We are both of us saved." Yeah, that was a weird way of writing it. Yeah, it says, "We are both of us saved." I guess because they're trying to make him sound, different. So, Lex Luthor uncovers Lex Luthor's School of International Business Studies and Policy. Apparently he's been making a lot of money from the metahuman gene thing, and now has an entire school named after him because people love what he's been doing, giving powers to people and helping society and stuff like that. But then a guy comes up to Lex Luthor calling him a liar, saying that he's giving these powers to people, but he's also taking them away. Lex is like, "Mr. Theory, what a pleasure to see you again. And here I thought the restraining order required that you keep 100 yards away from me at all times. I'm on to you, Luthor. I'm going to tell the world." And then, he gets thrown aside by Mercy. She's like, "Get out of here before I get all my Themyscira on your ass." And so they throw him out, and he comes face to face with John Henry Irons. And so John is like, "I believe you." There's two characters called John in this. I feel like I'm going to have to start calling one of them Super Chief or Steel just to tell them apart. So Steel tells this guy, Barry, that he believes him and that he will help him, make sure that the world will he'll try and help get the world, get this out to the world. And so that they know that he's speaking the truth and that Lex Luthor is lying. Meanwhile, Dr. Magnus is kind of freaking out because he's had these agent goons come in threatening him because they're trying to build their own versions of the Metal Men, but they can't figure out how to bring them to life, so they want Dr. Magnus to help them, and he refuses. And so he's got to figure out, he's got to get away because he's afraid that they're going to come after him. And he's absolutely right, because their version of the Metal Men, which have no personality, arrive at Magnus's house in order to kill him. And so Magnus grabs what's left of Mercury, which is one of his Metal Men that he's been slowly rebuilding. He grabs Mercury and he pulls him out into the living room where he comes face to face with these fake Metal Men, or these evil Metal Men. And Magnus takes them all down using, exploiting their weaknesses. For Iron, he takes him down with a magnet that's underneath the floor. He takes down Platinum by throwing Acro Regia at her, which is a fresh mix of concentrated hydrochloric and nitric acids that dissolves platinum. And he unfortunately has to leave Mercury behind because lead grabs onto Mercury and starts melting him. It's like, "Run, Doc! Run!" And there's a moment where Magnus has bits of mercury on his face, and because mercury is red, it looks like blood. So it's somewhat symbolic. He exits his house and he's like, "Oh God, oh dear God," and he sees tires and fire raining from the sky, and there is a giant robot outside of his house with an arm cannon that fires at him and destroys, causes a massive explosion. And when we don't know whether or not Dr. Magnus has survived the explosion or not, but this giant robot is basically just a Sentinel from X-Men. It looks exactly like one. So issue 23 begins with William Magnus waking up in the giant robot that had attacked his home. It has brought him to Oolong Island, which is where all of the other mad scientists have been taken, and they've just been dropped off there, given these narcotics that help them become smarter and open up their brains, and they've been told to just go wild and create any kind of robots, death machines, whatever they want, and just fight each other and have fun. And so they're all just like relaxing with like drinks and sunbathing and stuff while making all these death-defying, like all these death robots and things fighting each other. And they want Will Magnus to join them. And Tio Moro's like, well, you can't really leave here, so you don't really have much of a choice. Meanwhile, Renee Montoya and Charlie Cesaz find Whisperer Dare, the woman that works for Intergang, and she's got a group of children who she's trying to brainwash to join their cult. And one of these kids, like one of these young guys, is Amon, Isis's sister. Or Adriana's brother, sorry. Why did I say sister? Brother. And he's been trying to escape, and so he gets the crap beaten out of him by the Intergang guards and stuff to teach him a lesson, to the point where his legs are just completely smashed and broken. Renee wants to go down and save him, but Charlie is like, no, we can't, because if you go down there, you will die. We have to wait for Black Adam and Isis to show up, because they will deal with this. But then Renee and Charlie get attacked by a couple of monsters that work for Intergang. They get Charlie grabs Renee and like jumps off the roof where they've been hiding down below where all of the kids are, and they start fighting against Intergang. But that's when Black Adam and Isis break through the ceiling, and Renee explains to Isis that they found her brother Amon, but he's in really bad condition. And Isis is like, it's okay. Like, I'll be able to heal him with my powers, just like how I healed you. So she finds Amon, she runs over to him, and explains to Renee and Charlie that she can't heal him because he's far too broken. Like, she can't heal him fully. She can heal the wounds on his surface, but he will never be able to walk again. And then Black Adam decides, because it starts raining, and they're like, what? It's raining inside? Like, what's happening? And Black Adam is like, I am using an ability that I have never used before, but it's something that I know I can do. I will pass some of my power onto Amon, and it will allow him to walk again. And so he says, Amon, say my name, brother. Say it. And Amon says Black Adam, and like electricity starts surging out of his chest and his eyes, and a huge strike of electricity, like strike of lightning, hits him in the chest, and he transforms into Black Adam Jr. I mean, they call him Amon. He's essentially Black Adam Jr. He has all the powers of Black Adam, except he's a bit weaker. He's kind of like Captain Marvel Jr., and Black Adam explains that it's the same thing that Captain Marvel did when he passed his powers onto Freddie Freeman. He did that same thing to Amon. And that they're going to be a family now. And that's why he did it. He was like, I knew I could do it, and I wanted to because I want us to be a family. And then there's a funny moment where Charlie starts saying, Black Adam, Shazam, Isis. And Renee's like, what the hell are you doing? He's like, seeing if it's contagious. It's so funny seeing Charlie say funny things when he doesn't have a face. So Black Adam and Isis head home, where Isis reveals to Black Adam that they are going to change the world. Because she's like, I promised you that when we find Amon, we will change the world. And we're starting with China. And so they're going to go and head off to China, because I guess that's one of Black Adam's allies, so they want to start there. So issue 24 begins with Oliver Queen getting ready for some election event, when he suddenly gets a call from the new Firestorm, Jason Rush. Jason Rush invites Oliver to join his new Justice League, which consists of him, Bulleteer, Firehawk, Super Chief, and a character called Ambush Bug, who is DC's Deadpool. Like, just 4-4 breaking guy who's there to just kind of annoy everyone. But Oliver Queen doesn't get back to him about it. And instead they decide to go and have a meeting, which gets interrupted when Super Chief's Sky Stone starts glowing, which means it senses danger. So the Justice League have to go out and find what this danger is. And when they head out, they find a bunch of pirates that have just appeared somehow, like actual pirates, not just guys disguised as pirates. And so they start fighting these pirates. But then a bunch of the everymen, like, the civilians that have been taking the metahuman gene that was supplied by Lex Luthor, they all show up trying to be superheroes. And so they start fighting the pirates alongside the Justice League. But then the pirates, and then there's also robots as well. Like, at first there was pirates, and then robots suddenly show up too. And they start killing all of these people that are trying to be superheroes. So all these people just get slaughtered. And then it turns out that the one responsible for bringing the pirates and robots to the present was Skeets. Skeets is doing this because he thinks that it's going to draw somebody in. It's whoever he's looking for. He thinks that this is a good enough distraction for them to bring him in. And he thinks that the Justice League are getting in his way. So he blasts Firestorm, knocks him out, and then he kills Super Chief. Because he sees Super Chief as someone who might thwart his plan. So he straight up kills him. And then Super Chief's ancestor appears in front of him and is like, this is the bargain that you paid for when you chose to become Super Chief. And he takes the Sky Stone away from him and is like, magic doesn't come free, it comes with a price. Isn't that right, Ralph Dibny? And he turns to Ralph, and it turns out that this may have also been a part of Ralph's pilgrimage. They don't really explain yet as to how Ralph has anything to do with Super Chief, but it seems like he was somehow involved in this. Meanwhile, Martian Manhunter has been spending the last load of months, because he's been missing for months, and he's been spending those months pretending to be the secretary of, like, disguising himself as the secretary of the president in order to advise the president to shut down Checkmate after everything that Checkmate had done. Most specifically, killing Ted Kord. Like, he's getting revenge for Ted Kord. And at the same time, he's been making statues of everyone that died during Infinite Crisis, or just everyone that had died recently that hadn't been honored in any way. He created statues of all of them. I like how some of these statues are some of his former friends and members from, like, Justice League Europe and Justice League International. It goes to show that when they were writing this, they didn't forget about Martian Manhunter's roots or the different teams that he's been on, and that he really cared about everyone that he was friends with. But while he's visiting the president as his secretary, a guy shows up and says that we're overriding your rule because of what happened with the metahumans showing up and, like, getting killed. We are overriding your jurisdiction on shutting down the Checkmate, and we're going to reinstate them so that they can help protect the country because we need them now more than ever. And that pisses Martian Manhunter off. And so he's probably going to do something drastic in retaliation. Meanwhile, Black Adam and Isis head over to China in order to tell them that they're no longer going to be doing, like, this world power idea that he was trying to do. They can still have their own jurisdiction in their own country, but Black Adam is trying to do things a little bit more sane, a little bit more safe. And Amon is just bored by all of this political stuff. He's like, can't we just go beat up a villain or something? And Isis is like, behave, be polite, and we'll let you join the hunt for Sabak tonight. He's planning another one of his devil rituals. He is? Alright, demons! And so Black Adam turns to the 10 from China, their, like, superhero group. He says, if you're ever in need of help, August General, the Black Marvel family will be there. You were disappointing a great many people today. Powerful people. General, what do you think we are? And they leave China. And so it feels like there's some tension building up between Black Adam and his former allies. We then cut to Amanda Waller, who is not a fan of what Black Adam is doing at the moment, and she doesn't believe that Black Adam has turned over a new leaf, because she thinks that this is all fake, like him trying to be like a good guy and stuff. She thinks that he's planning something, and so she has teamed up with Atom Smasher, who is a former close friend of Black Adam. He helped Black Adam fight in Kahndaq. He murdered a lot of people in Black Adam's name, and now he's trying to rectify what he did by working with Amanda Waller. And it seems that he's going to be leading a new Suicide Squad and so he has to pick out of which villains he wants to bring with him to most likely take down Black Adam. Like, it seems like she's probably going to send him and a Suicide Squad after Black Adam to deal with him. So, issue 25 begins with Bruno Mannheim having taken over Gotham City. Bruno Mannheim works for Intergang, and he's just pretty damn evil, and also quite ugly as well. They call him Ugly Bruno or Ugly Mannheim for a reason. He kills a low-class supervillain called Mirage brutally by slamming his head against the book that Intergang is, like, worshipping. It's the same book that they were using when they were trying to bring those teenagers into their cult in the previous issue. He kills a bunch of random supervillains like Kite Man and some guys I don't know because they don't say their name and I don't know them by their appearance. But yeah, he's like, now, eat, enjoy the meat. Gotham City belongs to me. Meanwhile, Captain Marvel Jr. and Mary Marvel have to deal with Sabak, who is attacking kids on Halloween. Though Sabak is acting a lot more like a lame version of Trigon in this. Like, yeah, he's like a big demon dude, and I'm not really a fan of his edgelord personality that was portrayed in Outsiders, but at least that's a lot more interesting than him just being a big demon dude that's just like, I will kill you, I will eat you all. So Black Adam and Amon show up and beat the crap out of Sabak, and then strike lightning down on him, defeating him, and then they grab Sabak's body and take him away, alongside Isis, because she shows up at the very end. And Captain Marvel Jr. and Miss Marvel are left wondering, who are they? Like, who is Black Adam Jr.? Meanwhile, Ralph Dibny is currently in the underworld alongside the Helmet of Fate, where the Helmet of Fate is showing him the corpses of everyone who has ever tried to defy the devil. Like, anyone who has ever made a bargain with the devil and has defied it. And it's always ended badly for all of them. Especially Felix Faust, who is one of the greatest sorcerers in the world. He has been reduced to nothing but a tortured soul in the underworld after he tried to defy the power of the devil, and he, faced the consequences for that. And now he is trapped in the underworld forever, or at least his soul is. Ralph is like, the reason why I'm showing you all of this is so that you know what happens what could possibly happen if you take the bargain. And now it is time for you to take your bargain. So I hope you're ready for this, Ralph. Meanwhile, Infinity Inc. goes and fights Icicle Jr. and Tigress, who are two supervillains. And while they are fighting these two supervillains, Mirage, who is the replacement for Eliza, shows up and beats their heads together, beating them, and everyone starts clapping for them. They're like, yeah, Infinity Inc. is awesome, woo! Meanwhile, Alan Scott is watching from a distance. And he meets up with Michael Holt, who is Mr. Terrific, and they, look back on a couple of memories. They ask how each other is doing, how Alan Scott is dealing with the death of his daughter, and things like that. And then Alan reveals to Michael that this new checkmate that the government is building, they've asked him to be the White King for the new checkmate. And he wants Michael to be his bishop, because he wants the smartest man he knows to advise him. It's like, why? Why checkmate, you mean? Because someone needs to keep an eye on the little things before they turn into big ones. Things like Lex Luthor's metagene program. Things like this new Infinity Inc. Meanwhile, on Oolong Island, which is where all of the mad scientists are being held, Dr. Magnus doesn't want to build death machines for Intergang. So it seems like Intergang is behind the kidnapping of the mad scientists. And Tio Moro was like, well, they're going to be the government soon, so you're not really going to have much of a choice. And that's when Bruno Mannheim arrives on the island to meet with the... Remember when we were in China and the 10, the superhuman group in China, were meeting with some big boss and we didn't get to see who it is? Well, now it's finally revealed that the big boss is Chang Su, who is sometimes known as Egg Fu, except not more recently because it's a pretty ignorant name and pretty racist name for the character. He is essentially a giant rotten egg-looking guy who is in a robot spider-like suit. It's kind of ridiculous. And he's working with Mannheim on a group of weapons that he has suitably dubbed the Four Horsemen. So issue 26 begins with Black Adam, Amon, who is going by the name Osiris, and Iris, who drop Renee and Charlie in the Himalayas near Nanda Parbat, where they meet with a couple of Charlie's friends because they are continuing to investigate into Gang and find a way to take them down. Meanwhile, the Black Adam family head off on their own ventures, and we'll catch up with them a little bit later. For now, we have to... I almost forgot to mention that Renee and Charlie, one of the people that they meet with is Richard Dragon, who is one of the greatest martial artists in the world. So now we cut to You Are Wrong, which is a show that is hosted by Jack Ryder, and he is interviewing John Henry Irons, who is trying to get it out to the world that Lex Luthor's everyman regime is a bad thing, but Natasha Irons is there to argue against him, and John just believes that, like, it is just anybody that should be allowed to be a superhero. You should be properly trained and stuff, and because Infinity Inc. isn't properly trained and they're led by someone as schemy as Lex Luthor, that they shouldn't be superheroes. And Natasha just thinks like that John has no say in this because he's not even out there actually helping people, while Infinity Inc. are at least trying to help people. And then she gets like a call on her receiver that there's an explosion going on in Hobbs Bay, and so she leaves. She's like, you can stay here and be on TV, I have to go help. And so John is just left kind of thinking to himself, maybe Natasha's a little bit right about this. We then cut to the Savannah household where we meet Dr. Savannah's family. Because, yeah, he has kids, he has an ex-wife, and his kids are trying to use time travel, like, because he has a time machine in his basement, so they're trying to use it in order to change their lives. We get a small glimpse of Wave Rider, because they activate the time machine, and we see Wave Rider for a moment, which is the first time in a long time that we've seen him. And that'll probably be important later, I'm guessing. A big explosion happens, which sends Savannah's kids flying backwards, and their mum calls them up to have dinner because they have guests. And when they leave the basement, we see that there is an alligator person living in the basement that they didn't see for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know how they didn't see this alligator, but they didn't. So it turns out the guests that they have over for dinner are Black Adam, Isis, and Osiris, and so they all have dinner together, and while they're having dinner, the crocodile person, the alligator person, just interrupts their dinner. Before this happens, Osiris has a bit of an argument with Isis, saying that, like, he is bored of just going around with them trying to fix countries and stuff. Like, he has needs of his own, and those needs are friends, and he just flies out the door because he just wants friends because he doesn't have any. And that's when the alligator man suddenly attacks the dinner and then just runs straight through the wall of the house leading outside. It didn't hurt anyone, and the reason it didn't hurt anyone is because it turns out that this alligator person isn't actually a bad person. Osiris meets it outside and learns that this used to just be a regular alligator, and that it was kidnapped by Dr. Savannah and brought to his basement, where he fed it all sorts of things that turned it into a half alligator, half human hybrid. And all this alligator wants is it wants friends that it can eat dinner with. And so Osiris is like, well, my name's Osiris, do you want a friend? And so that's where issue 26 ends, and that is where this episode is going to end. Because we are officially halfway through 52. I was hoping that issue 26 was going to have a little bit more of a grandeur ending, but the ending to issue 26 was really nice. So far, I completely understand why 52 is as acclaimed as it is. Like, I've really been getting into this series, and there hasn't been a single story in this that I've felt is lacking or anything. Like, I've enjoyed all of them. I've enjoyed how they really tied into all the other stories. So far, I think the best stories in this are the ones about Ralph Dibny and then the one about Black Adam. Like, those are the two best stories, I think, at the moment. But they're all great, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. So next week, we're going to be doing more 52, where we will finish it off and see how this whole series concludes. I hope that you join me then, and yeah, I'll see you next week for more 52.